Let's see what people are saying about the Odyssey. Oh, wait a minute.
Talking about a Christopher Nolan movie, which means you know I'm going to talk about Interstellar. Conversation starter and a mantelpiece. And now Christopher Nolan brings us his adaptation of Homer's The Odyssey. So let's talk about it. So The Odyssey is the new film directed by director Christopher Nolan. It stars Matt Damon as Odysseus, and this is the story of the Odyssey. More than that, it's Christopher Nolan's telling of the Odyssey, which kind of sounds like a no shit moment, but it's decidedly very Nolan does the Odyssey. Odysseus is the king of Ithaca. He was also in the Trojan War for 10 years. And he and his men are going to sail home, and Poseidon and the rest of the gods say, we'll just see about that. This is the 10-year story of a man in Greek mythology trying to get home. That's 10 years on top of the 10 years he already spent at the War of Troy. Trying to get home in a world pre-Google Maps, in a world pre-MapQuest but no printer.
Tasty.
We all remember. 10 years, minimum. All the while, these suitors have invaded his home. They're trying to take his throne. So his wife and son, played by Anne Hathaway and Tom Holland, got to deal with that. While they're trying to hold on to hope that Odysseus is still alive out there. Now, what I found interesting is I heard, we'll call it a rumor because it turned out to be not too true, no influencers screening the Odyssey early. Then all the early reactions and reviews were influencers talking about how great the Odyssey was. They were gushing about it, which led me to the natural thought of, wow, these early reactions really love the Odyssey. Man, you mean this movie might suck? No, the Odyssey is epic. And that could mean it's just big, but this movie's great. First of all, Matt Damon. Never would have cast him as Odysseus, not gonna lie, but the dude clocks into work. I thought it was gonna be the Matt Damon show, you know? It's like, okay, if he shines, if he's good in the movie, great. Most in this movie having more than a few minutes of screen time have a scene, monologue, or moment that makes them stand out. Tom Holland, Anne Hathaway, Robert Pattinson, I mean, they're all reliably great. Another standout for me was Himesh Patel. I don't know, I just didn't expect a member of Odysseus's crew to go toe-to-toe with Matt Damon. The biggest standout, surprise standout for me, John Leguizamo. Amazing in here. I thought John Leguizamo being in this movie was going to be Mia Goth being in this movie. Mia Goth is in this movie for 30 seconds. So that kind of shows the power of the Christopher Nolan orbit, you know, the gravitational pull. I get the feeling actors out there are like, I don't care if it's the lead, a minor role, a background role, or a grip. I want to be involved in his next film. So you're going to have Mia Goth playing a very minor role in here. More than 30 seconds. A minute. But John Leguizamo was a much bigger role than I thought he was going to be in here. Man, he surprised me. This sounds like a backhanded compliment. I don't mean for it to be so. Pattinson, you just want to smack. The dude absolutely plays it up. He owns it. Which there is cruelty to dogs in this movie too. I'll give you that warning. Us dog people and all. You know how it is. Yeah, we dog people are like, gotta mention that. One scene in particular is, it was a bit much. Props to Nolan for not shying away from the ugly parts of the times that were. That said, it was rough to watch. But the big thing, the selling point of this film is the fact that it is very Christopher Nolan does the Odyssey. It's in the vast, enormous, expansive world that feels equal parts mythical and real. And where you're used to seeing boats and ships and landscape, but you see the haze of green screen. I didn't run into that here. It looked impressive. It looked real. More than that, it felt real. That's what cinema's
What
supposed to do. It's supposed to make you feel something. There are scenes in this movie that are talking about a Christopher Nolan movie, which is horror movie-esque. Funny, the other day I saw an article headline that said something like, "Why hasn't Christopher Nolan made a horror movie?" Maybe they just watched the Odyssey. Because I'm watching the Odyssey going, he kinda did. The Cyclops Cave has always been a standout moment in the Odyssey for me. And it's a standout moment in this version of the Odyssey. It's absolutely terrifying. This Cyclops was the thing you were afraid was under your bed if it would fit under your bed. Another standout scene was the Cersei scene. It's the kind of thing that's gonna live rent-free in my head for probably a month. Some locations were different than I thought they would be. Maybe that's Nolan being like, yeah, grounded realism, it's kind of my thing. But I was like, it's less of a palace, more of a hut. Yeah, that scene's scary as hell. And that's where Nolan really shines in the way he does things, the way he can take something and make it feel grounded when it deals in a world of mythology and magic. Because I don't know about you, I might be projecting, but when I read these mythological stories, it just kind of, I take it in like, yeah, and magic's in this world, and they just see it as normal, and well, it's a magic world. But Nolan makes magic in this film terrifying, and it should be terrifying. You feel like you're having the same existential crisis that the characters themselves are having, and that's a big thing. That's a big deal. It's rare. Two things that I have heard critiques on, even when coming out of the movie theater and people giving their thoughts and talking about it, was the sound and lighting, and one of which I do understand. The other, I didn't run into a problem there. I didn't run into a problem with the sound. Christopher Nolan's last couple, maybe few movies, there has been that, okay, who did the EQ on this movie kind of feeling? I didn't run into it here. There were moments that were louder than others, but I liked it. What can I say? The Cyclops screaming in the cave, his scream is so much louder than what you've heard to that point, and I feel like that was the point. It added to that feeling for me of, hey, this is nightmare fuel. Let's get the fuck out of here. Another one's the lighting. I understand the gripe of the lighting, but I didn't have a problem with the lighting. I have my theory about the perception of the lighting in here. It is a bit darker than a lot of movies I've seen lately, but it's not that flat, dull, boring dark. I noticed a world of contrast and shadows and light and dark, and I feel like I've almost forgotten how to process that as a new film. A lot of movies these days have that evenly lit, dull, lifeless, muddy look to it, and well, I liked this more. This movie absolutely does follow the less is more adage, and I like that too. I mean, you're dealing with monsters, but you got Nolan going, hey, we want things to feel and look real, but that would probably mean a lot of CGI. So there were a few scenes where I was left to my imagination, or maybe something's off in the distance, but that kind of puts me in the POV of the guys in the boat seeing this thing. The monster Scylla, I didn't find that to be impressive, to be honest with you. That's a caveat for the film. You don't get a good look at it, to be fair. Maybe if I had the movie at home and it comes out on Blu-ray, hard copy, always. Maybe I could frame by frame it, pause it, be like, oh, that does look cool. But for right now, for the quick glimpse we get, meh. All right. Controversies. This movie's had some controversies, some conversations that have taken up a lot of internet bandwidth. I feel they're worth addressing here because the movie doesn't have them play out how I think some people think it will. First of all, Helen of Troy. Lupita Nyong'o as Helen of Troy. She's in the movie for, I think, 5 minutes max. She has a couple of moments, but they're so fast, they're so brief. That's what Nolan does in this movie. He has a lot of flashback moments that are just a second or two long. It does kind of crack me up knowing Christopher Nolan set up this whole shot, probably filmed for a day and a half for footage that lasts that long. Release the Nolan cut. There's probably not enough time in a year to watch it, whatever that would be. Another one, Elliot Page as not Achilles, does not play Achilles. Nope, just plays a young soldier again in this movie briefly. I think Elliot Page and Lupita Nyong'o collectively are in this movie for 7 minutes, and that's generous. The argument's been Elliot Page as a Greek soldier in the Trojan War would.
So in essence, they don't play roles for anywhere as long as people have been saying that they're going to, or people have been thinking, people have been having their theories out, their anti-woke theories out, if you will, saying, oh my God, it's going to be terrible. I'm calling her Ellen Page, I don't care, because she's still a woman to me. Ellen Page is the new, whatever character she plays, It's going to be terrible. It's woke. Also, we have minority characters as white characters, minority actors as white characters. Primarily the woman from what's it called? Hold on, Us. Oh, Us by directed by Jordan Peele. This movie, that woman right there. You might know her already, but I'll go ahead and get her name. If I can pronounce it, I know she's Lupa Nyong'o, from Black Panther 1 and 2. I miss Winston Duke. You should find the fisherman and kill him. Anyway, I actually like that movie. I should watch it again.
Get destroyed. But to be fair, that is the point of the character. Elliot Page's character in this movie kind of reminded me of the kid from The Matrix Reloaded and The Matrix Resurrections. Maybe you fought in that war, but you definitely wouldn't be first pick on the war draft or high school gym. But that dynamic is a big part of Odysseus's arc in his story. And I felt it really worked. The other one is the way people talk, the script. I mean, Nolan's scripts have always kind of been
that best balance the emotion.
Dialogue. I mean, sometimes it's great. Sometimes you definitely have that thought, but they definitely do have this English American way of talking. And I agree, there is something about the British way of speaking, the King's English. You hear the Imperials in Star Wars having British accents, and it was said, the sun never set on the British Empire.
And they say often schedule and assume and root. Words that are different from how we would say it because they're spelled the same, but they're different pronunciation.
Empire. It looks like the British Empire expanded to a galaxy far, far away. And it just works. They just sound awesome. Lord of the Rings, the way they spoke, it sounded powerful. In this movie, they don't really talk like that. And I'm not gonna lie, it just didn't stick with me past that scene, which is near the beginning of the film. At no point was I in the Cyclops cave going, yeah, but he said daddy. And the big one that I even in my sponsorship segment in this video poked at, because it's just low-hanging fruit. Odysseus yelling, let's go, like he's a TikToker talking about the newest MCU trailer. The scene in the movie is executed and plays out in context differently than how the trailer makes it look like it does. I don't want to tell you how the scene plays out. I want you to watch it yourself, but you might very well have that moment of, did Nolan just troll the internet? And probably. I really dug the musical score by Ludwig Göransson. The song in the Odyssey trailer is the theme in the Odyssey, and how somber, sad, and heartfelt and emotional it is. Yeah. That's the vibe of the movie. I've been replaying that trailer version on YouTube on repeat since I watched this thing. Bringing out those emotional feels. What you see on screen is half the job. That's half the part. The other half is the musical score, and this one does the job. I've noticed this about Christopher Nolan movies. I feel like it wasn't always the case, but at a point it became the case. The movie kind of feels broken up, if not disjointed. You're left with that feeling of, okay, where is this going exactly? It's all about how he can pull it together in the end. And when he does, it feels like you're given the key to the map you've been watching for 2 hours or so. Well, close to 3 here. But since the last hour is it wrapping up, I'll say 2. And when it does, dude, that's the real point here. The last 45 minutes of the Odyssey or so, I was sitting there like I was Carmy talking to his mom in The Bear. Man tears being held back because this film makes you feel something. It's not just something. It's something big and something human. It revolves around family and loss and pain. It's about war and how it changes you. It's like Nolan's almost looking at the audience going, you gonna crack yet? Here's another thing. How about now? Here's another thing. How about now? Thing is, the emotional...
Whoa. What's going on here? I'm always running into technical difficulties. What just happened?
It's like Nolan... something. It's something big and something human. It's revolves around family and loss and pain. It's about war and how it changes you. It's like Nolan's almost looking at the audience going, "You gonna crack yet? Here's another thing. How about now? Here's another thing. How about now?" Thing is, the emotional impact of this film, I was thinking about it all night. It doesn't end when the end credits hit. I took it home with me. In the end, if it's not apparent, yeah, I absolutely loved Christopher Nolan's Odyssey. Well, Christopher Nolan's take on Homer's The Odyssey. You know what I mean? It's like the absolute cinema meme rolled into one film. Even with the slow start, I mean, it doesn't have a lot of get up and go early on. It is giving you a lot of information. Funny enough, it's kind of a hybrid of show and tell. Usually it's one or the other. It's telling while showing. It does for about 25 minutes of setup. All things considered for The Odyssey, it's pretty time efficient. I guess it didn't bother me because I don't see The Odyssey how I've heard some people describe The Odyssey. I've heard this movie described as an action movie. It has action in it, but I feel it's more of a drama with action in it. And granted, the action scenes are great. They're standouts. They're exciting. More than that, this film is amazing at tension. It's big. It's epic. It's heartfelt. It's soulful. It's tragic. It unexpectedly made me chuckle a couple times. One of my favorites of the year. Not even a question. With an ending that's satisfying, as I remember the ending of The Odyssey being. The Odyssey is awesome-tacular. This is the kind of thing I go to the movies for. I feel like I'm not going to see something like this. I was going to say ever again. Definitely for a very long time. All right, so The Odyssey, have you seen it? What did you think about it? Or what's your favorite Christopher Nolan film? Whatever it is, whatever you think, comment below, let me know. And as always, if you like what you've seen here and you want to see more, click right here to see more.
Oopsie, my bad. Go back to the playlist. I'm gonna try to watch these videos in the order that I got them on my playlist. All right. All right. Now, I'll just play it.
Wow! So The Odyssey debuts on Rotten Tomatoes at 98%. Christopher Nolan's highest debut ever. Well, what do you guys always tell me? When the critics hate it, the fans will love it. And when the fans love it, the critics will hate it. No, it's when the critics love it, the fans hate it. And when the critics hate it, the fans love it. There we go. Just wanted to make sure I got that all correct there.
That's exactly what I've been saying. But he says it's at 58%. And if I just look at the Odyssey, Google it, right? This goddamn computer, goddamn doing shit I don't want to goddamn do. Give me the goddamn URL. Every day it's something.
So, 98%. Let's go check right now. See how it's doing. Rotten Tomatoes. And Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey is first. Now is down to 97%. Okay, now, so the fact of the matter is this. He has checked all the boxes. So, the fact of now is down to 97%. Okay, now, so the fact of the matter is.
Now we're just checking on it. Here we go. Never mind the first few. It's at 96% right now. I am multitasking a shitload. Here's the Odyssey right for me. So 96% right now. It's not even. It's almost Thursday. And the reason why I'm checking this one is because I made a bet on Kalshi. It's called buying predictions. And I spent $15 on the score being above 97% on Rotten Tomatoes. The results to be finalized on Monday, July 20th, this coming Monday, at exactly 10 o'clock ET, Eastern Time. For Pacific Time, you. That's 7 o'clock for me. Yeah, Eastern Time is exactly 3 hours ahead of Pacific Time. So, Monday, July 20th, 2026 at 10 o'clock a.m. ET is 7 o'clock a.m. PT. Eastern Time to Pacific Time. My screen might do that. I'm sorry. I went into quite a bit of technical issues. It's like Evil Dead with my shit. It's like there's sessions going on. To calculate this is simple trick 3 hours Eastern Time, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so with that said, I made predictions on Kalshi here, and I'm trying to obtain my password without showing it so I can log in and check it.
This. He has checked all the boxes. He has used the terminology for modern audiences.
You're not going to see a screen because there's a technical issue, but you can hear it.
So we all know that Nolan is all in on the Panderverse, on the woke wagon. He's on. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? He's riding the woke wagon. All right. Now, the question is, can he make a Panderverse woke modern audience movie great? Can he? I don't know. I haven't seen it yet, you know? There's certain people I trust
I haven't seen it
online and certain people I don't trust. And I will tell you the majority I don't trust. Because the majority, I've noticed in my years, either are paid shills or they're trying to become a paid shill. Or
there's that word again, shill. Shill incels, it's the terminology you hear all the time.
Trying to get those little trinkets, the gift box in the mail, the invite to this or to that, so they can rub shoulders with people. You know what I'm saying? So there's only a few that I trust. Now,
sometimes you get a gift or a free ticket and you feel obligated to give it a positive experience, although you should be quite, making sure my door's locked, although you should be quite honest. Because there's a lot of YouTubers, there's a lot of reviewers, I always put that in quotes, because I doubt whether or not they are actually reviewers, but they will get a free screening of a movie and they will give the honest take. For example, Austin Bulk did this with Chris Stuckman last year, doing Chris Stuckman's. He saw Chris Stuckman helped him see an early screening of his movie Sherman Oaks, and he mentioned that to give him credit, more or less, but then he didn't completely, but he kind of shitted on the movie. He was kind of like, you know what? I think he shouldn't direct anymore. I think he should just stick to writing. And, it's kind of an asshole move on his part because he's going by the bandwagon that's saying that it's saying his movie was actually pretty bad and he should just stick to writing and not directing. They did that with James Cameron. So that's the common trope now, is we're trying to basically depict how people should live their lives when it comes to their jobs. But anyway,
I didn't see any out of the theaters in my timeline, in my feed, from anyone that I didn't see none from anyone that I trust that much. I only saw one. The others that I saw like...
Yeah, the out of theaters is where you get all those chills or grifters.
Like 2 or 3 others were from channels I don't trust. So I don't trust them. No, I'm not, So now, there's a few channels I trust as far as full reviews go. And it's very few of them. I think I can count them on one hand. You get what I'm saying? So, either I wait for the reviews or I go see it myself. Oh, God.
I don't wait for the reviews. I see it myself. Sometimes I will listen to reviews, but most of the time, I pretty much every time, I watch it for myself. And typically, I don't do this. I usually watch a movie, then watch the reviews, do my live stream, but this time very rarely do I watch reviews first. I just so happen to have these reviews because just yesterday, like as soon as Wednesday midnight hit, in YouTube, in my feed, I saw a bunch of in my YouTube feed, I saw a bunch of out of theater reactions, and then later on, they released and
it feels
they released views because there was the embargo lifted. Let's see when it lifted. When did the embargo lift? It lifted just today, this morning. Critics were allowed to post their reviews at 9 a.m. PT. The theatrical release is, of course, it's about in 1 hour. It's going to be midnight, so. But they had a lot of out of theater reactions, and those are called social reactions. They're not really reviews. But if I go into the playlist here, real quick, I'll show you. Take a look at this. These are some of the oldies I found in the playlist. You talk about the angle around it. These are reviews are in the only reviews. That's what Film Threat does for a lot of big stuff. But this one right here, you'll see social media, out of theater social media reaction. Social media means you put it on your social media like Facebook. Come on, man. If you don't put it on Facebook, it's not social media. I don't know why that's in there. Odyssey out of theater reaction. It's like 3 minutes. Out of theater reaction 6 minutes. If you go anywhere, I really kneel 3 minutes between 3 maybe not necessarily 3, but if you go anywhere near like over 3, I don't trust that it's a reaction. I think it's a mini review, because like this one says, Christopher Nolan claims criticism of the Odyssey is irrelevant. These are like less than 3 minutes. This is less than 3 minutes. So most of them are less than 3 minutes. But this one right here, the Odyssey out of theater reaction, you've got Austin Bulk with whatever his name is from Flickpick. How is that 12 minutes? How is your out of theater reaction 4 times the time it should be? Especially when Austin Bulk's own one, and you can see the click or whatever his name is in the background there beside him. His is 2 minutes and 24 seconds, nearly 2.5 minutes. But his happens to be, over 12 minutes. I don't understand that. And we'll check that out before we watch the reviews. But you see what I'm saying is, it's kind of hard for me to follow if your out of theater social media reaction, all in quotes, is more than 3 minutes.
Feels exhausting to even get myself ready to, you know what I'm saying? Like, maybe I'll surprise you guys tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? So, if the rule holds true, the fact that the critics love it so much, the public isn't going to like this movie. Now, we all know that it's all the trailers are getting downvoted to oblivion ratio. The backlash has spread. The backlash has spread all over the internet. But this is Christopher Nolan's first box check, woked up, modern audience movie. So his popularity may protect it. Remember, popularity armor will protect you for a certain amount of time. It happened with Star Wars, at Marvel, DC. However, all of they're bare naked now. Okay? They fight just like Let Me Solo Her. Okay? You're a gamer, you already know who that is. That's how they're going into battle right now. Okay? Except they're not as good as Let Me Solo Her. Okay? So, they're bucket naked. Just draws on with a jar on their head. Okay? That's all they got going into battle to the box office. Now, we all know Nolan is a good director. There are many out there, but he's not perfect. Many great directors out there, And he's not even my favorite, There's a lot out there that I like a little bit more than Nolan. but I know he's good. I know that he knows what he's doing for the most part. But every great director can make mistakes. I've never seen a perfect movie in my life, I don't think. Maybe.
You hear that, Chris Stuckman? It's not a perfect movie. You still, you make mistakes, you learn from them. We'll get to you in a little bit, buddy. Don't worry what the hell to say.
Trying to think. A lot of people say The Godfather is perfect. I've seen The Godfather, but
it's not too long.
I think I may have seen it after its time. Like, trying to think. Is there a perfect movie out there?
Nope.
Not even my favorite movie of all time, Superman 1978, is perfect. They ran out of budget at a certain point, and you can tell, in certain scenes. Terminator 2 might be perfect. I have to think about that for a minute, but Terminator 2 might be perfect. There's a lot of great movies out there. So the point is, family, folks, Magnesites, do you trust it? From what I hear, people are going online and they're checking their theaters and they're not sold out. It's just the initial run that's sold out, like the IMAX early screening type of thing that all the fans are going to.
No, I was checking that earlier today. Let's see. I got one for the 16th and the 18th. I'm gonna look at the opening times real quick. Now this bastard loads. I'm just opening multiple tabs willy-nilly, huh? Lord Water, he wants you to donate to Stand Out for $15.99. No. Social Watchtower. Streamlabs. I'm not even gonna do that. We're gonna do. There's none out today, by the way. But let's look for. Should we do Thursday or Friday first? What should we do? Let's go ahead and do Thursday first, right? 10:45, 2:45. So, because of other movies in IMAX, you got Let me go ahead and shift to the other movies. And this is for Thursday, which is about to be my time anyway, Pacific time. You got 12 o'clock showing for Adobe. That had like 4 or 5 of them last weekend, because I'm a trailer checker. So when I was checking the trailers in the movie at the local movie theater, at this one, AMC Metreon 16, there were like 4 or 5 of these Adobe Cinemas screen times for Moana, but now there's only one. ScreenX is not that great, as you can see. There's still 4 of those, but no IMAX anymore. So they're reserving the IMAX for 10:45 and 2:45, because that movie's gonna not last maybe one more week. I'm trying to see what else is in the IMAX. Oh, there's a 2 o'clock show time. That sold the fuck out, by the way. Damn. That's excluded from A-List. That's the IMAX 70mm event. That's 2 hours and 52 minutes. But if you go back up to this one, it's going to be 70mm anyway, and it's the same one time. What's the difference between the fan event? Let me go down. Try to find some. Come on, goddamn information. You got the fan event. Has been advised contains flashing lights. There's gonna be posters. Looking at Odyssey films. So it's roughly the same. I don't know what the fan event is. Special early access screening of a highly anticipated movie. Earlier than regular showings. Been offered Dead Hard fans exclusive collectibles like limited edition posters. That's probably what it is. It's some kind of poster. I mean, admittedly, I got a keychain from Milan. Got to lean over and shit. I ain't got much space. So you can see that it's the Eye of Tafiti from Moana last week, and I got it attached to my iPhone and my AirPods. My bad. Those are the kind of things you get from the fan event. I get them anyway, so from a nice day in the theater. So those are the fan events. Yeah, only 5 seats. Young Washington's not going to last long. And what's his name? Ben Kingsley, I believe his name is. Not Ben Kingsley. I'm sorry. He's in the movie. I think. He's. I forgot his name. This guy, Kelsey Grammer. He said in the end of that movie. I'm just going to add this in. It's because it's made by, Angel Studios. He said, donate, scan the QR code on your screen, scan the QR code on your screen now, and donate money to buy a ticket for a friend to go see it. And together, let's make this movie the greatest movie in America. No, the number one movie in America. And I just burst out laughing. That's the first time I really burst out laughing like that. I didn't even do that for a scary movie because there's so many movies competing for that one accolade title, the number one movie in America. You know how they always say it, the number one movie in America is Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey. I mean, William Franklin Miller. It was alright, but I've seen better. Anyway, let's get back on point here. So we got these are the IMAX 10:45 later on today. All of them are full except for the 3 of the wheelchair seats, and this is like pretty late at night. And then even later in the morning, damn, 3 hours, because the movie won't start until like 3:15 anyway. There's 30 minutes of trailers. Let's see, add 3 hours to that, 3:15, 6:15, take off 8 minutes. I'm gonna say 6:05, 6:08 a.m. Around 6:10 a.m. It'll be over with. About 6:15, and then if you take off for the 10:45, damn, what is that? 3 hours later. 10 to 11, 11 to 12, 12 to 1, 1 to 2. It's 4 hours. So I don't know. 2:15 maybe. Because this one starts at 2:45, 2:15, 2:10, something like that. And that's just an IMAX alone. Check out the Adobe. We're going to check out every single time so far. And these numbers are pending. They can change. Okay, 3 o'clock. I hate how it starts out like this. Yeah, only 1 minute seat. Damn. If I were to sit down, I couldn't take that seat. I'd have to have the wheelchair space. Take my own damn chair. I'll probably do that. This is Dolby, right? Dolby Cinema. Yeah, I could probably do a C11, but I don't want to. I'm gonna wait. 7, normal field. At 11:15. Almost all of them are filled. I would have to sit in that wheelchair spot. C6. If I chose. $13, that's double. I am in C6. What's the double time? So I'm right there. I kind of don't want to see it in Dolby. I would want to wait to see it in IMAX, because one thing about me, it being nearly 3 hours, if I see it in any showing, I'm not going to want to watch it again, even in IMAX. So it's like I should just wait to IMAX to go ahead and get out of my system so I can only see it once. All right, let's continue. 4 o'clock, I think it was, right? 4 o'clock. This is regular 2D. Not bad. Not bad at all. Wait. 5 o'clock. Not too shabby. That's not bad. 8 o'clock. And then 9 o'clock. 10 o'clock. Well, there's about one every hour. That's what we're looking at. 4, 5, 6, 7. No, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 15. You sure I can't see the IMAX? I totally would. They got these tickets like a few months in advance. I'm shit out of luck. I could see it in the front row, but I don't like doing that. Because I don't like being like this. You know, all squished up and shit. I'd have to sit right here. An A17, if anything. But I'm not ordering that dress. Anyway, let's do Friday. 7, 11, 3, 11, 3. Alright. Booked. Just about. Like 95%, 97%. About 98% there. 98.5, I think. At 11 a.m. 3 o'clock p.m. God, same thing. Literally, only 2 seats. You got wheelchair assisted and wheelchair space. 11 o'clock p.m. Late night. Damn, the same thing. The only thing that's available are wheelchair spaces and wheelchair assistants. And believe it or not, people do take the wheelchair assistants. But like you see here, this is closer to the middle, and you got 1 wheelchair space and 1 wheelchair assistant, but you got wheelchair space right there. Those people are not necessarily people, because a wheelchair assisted chair is for somebody who's accompanying somebody with a wheelchair that's taking wheelchair space. But usually it's still a seat, so people take it. They're not most of the time they're not assisting people with wheelchairs. They're not with them. They're just regular people who can walk like me. I take up the spaces too. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. Not that looking up like maybe 97% at least. 97.5. 3 o'clock in the morning. Dolby Cinema. 10 o'clock a.m. And this is Friday, right? 2 o'clock p.m. 6 o'clock p.m. Boom. Dolby Cinema. Damn. 10 o'clock p.m.
In a rush to first, because they tell you to watch out for that. They're like, oh, everything's sold out, IMAX and special. Yeah, but that's all the enthusiasts. So what you have to wait for is like the following weeks to see if it continues to climb and has legs, or if it dips. You know what I'm saying? Because all the enthusiasts are out of the way. All the major fans are going to go first, you know? So I guess we'll just have to wait and see. And maybe, God, what is the runtime on this? Christopher Nolan's of the Odyssey runtime.
Christopher Nolan's version of the Odyssey runs for 2 hours and
52 minutes. Good Lord. See, here's the thing. The more woke is dangled in your face, the more irritating it gets. I have heard that all of the box checks to get the Oscar for this movie are very small parts in the movie. So that's checks to get the Oscar. The more woke is dangled in your face, the more irritating it gets. I have heard that all of the box checks to get the Oscar for this movie are very small parts in the movie. So
that's all the woke people, you know, that's all the gays, the transvestites, the transgenders, you know, Ellen Page, they call her Elliot Page, and the black people, the, you know, all the check boxes for them. They get all the Oscar spots, like you said, are all minor. They're all minor.
Are very small parts in the movie. So that's, I guess, a saving grace. That it, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, he checked all these damn boxes to woke the movie up to get the award. But if he kept them in there for as little as possible, there's less eye rolling. There's less irritation to the crowd. And then you can get on with the majority of the movie being Christopher Nolan greatness. So this could work out for him.
Kind of. It works for everybody. It works for the woke community because they are included. Therefore, it helps him get that Oscar because the Oscars have their, their criteria for those, for that, for what they call woke people, but also it satisfies the anti-woke people in that he just gave them a small part. Yeah, I did include them, but I gave them a very small part, so you don't have to worry. You can literally close your eyes if you want. You can roll and close your eyes. So it could work out for him.
We'll just have to see. Oh, God, I'm trying to get up the motivation to go see it tomorrow. Post comments down below. Let me know what you all think. Do you think that the Odyssey will fail? Or do you think that it will be a hit? Let me know. I've already done a poll. If you go,
I think it's gonna be a mixed review. It'll be a mixed bag. It's gonna be mixed reviews. Most people are gonna like it, like the fans, but some people are gonna have their problems. So, like, if you look at the Rotten Tomato score, it's right now, it's 96% critics. Let's refresh that. I think the popcorn meter is going to be roughly 75 to 80%, give or take. Give or take.
go to my my wall, my YouTube wall, the community page. If you go to the community page, scroll, just do a little scroll and you'll run into it and you can vote on that. And so
Let's see what that poll is. Let's see what the poll is. Ultra Taiwan Magnets. I was about to say Ultra Magnets. I like his little. I like that right there. I like that. It's kind of like a. He mixes different pop culture, different comic book stuff. Like he's got Stormbreaker and Monu as Thor with his own picture. Then he's got YU from Street Fighter. Community, here we go. That's the video. Hold on, let me get this, I want to get Christian here. I gotta watch that too. Evil Dead Bomb. The manufactured hype. Oh man, some people are gonna call John Compy a shield. I know it. They're gonna call him a shield. I mean, I never met the guy in person, but he seems like a pretty cool dude. But they're gonna call him a shield. They're gonna say he's trying to pump this movie up, and that's how it's gonna be bad. I don't know. That Glitch was like no erotic saying it's gonna. He thought it was okay. Can't make a good movie, don't want your mouth. Oh, I see. I know what I did. That wasn't about a movie. That wasn't about a movie. That was a. That was about the physical media that PlayStation is getting rid of. PlayStation and Xbox are getting rid of physical media. That's my bad. Sorry, I didn't heal. Yeah. Watch my mouth, Michael. Okay. What's on your mind, the newest one?
See, right now, people are saying that it's going to flop. Like the majority are saying it's going to flop. So, we'll see. 10 million subscribers. Woo!
The Odyssey is written and directed by Christopher Nolan and has a massive cast. Matt Damon, Tom Holland, Robert Pattinson, Anne Hathaway, so many people in this movie. And it comes after his Best Picture and Best Directing wins for Oppenheimer. The Odyssey is a mythic action epic that adapts Homer's foundational saga. It stars Matt Damon as Odysseus, the Greek king of Ithaca, and chronicles his long and perilous journey home after the Trojan War. I think for a lot of film fans, this is up there on the list of most anticipated films of the year. Obviously, it is for me. Christopher Nolan has made some of my favorite movies of all time, and even some of his lesser films that I don't love more than others are still better than most people's best films. With Oppenheimer almost making $1 billion worldwide on a film that is part black and white, rated R, biopic, without a lot of action, it's not a superhero movie or a gigantic IP, that was really an incredible feat. That's before what it did at the Oscars, and after that, it's like, okay, now you've got some leeway to do.
Not in my opinion. I didn't like it that much. I liked the beginning, but I didn't like after that.
Pretty much whatever you want, even though he could pretty much do whatever he wanted before. When you look at what went on behind the scenes to get the Odyssey made, you realize just how much of an ask this was, because this isn't just about adapting a really well-known text from a really well-known filmmaker filled with a gigantic cast of really well-known people. It's really not about that. That's what makes this look like an easy yes from a studio. It's really the fact that a large portion of the shoot involved a crew and all of their gear and the cast hiking up a mountain, helicopter rentals, somehow getting all of these massive A-list stars to these locations safely, as well as the crew safely, assembling an actual facility on the side of a mountain so that they could have lunch breaks. Like, this is a lot of money and a lot of time that's being asked.
People are going to say that Chris Stuckman is a shield, that he's trying to mask it as the movie set that he's talking about, all those different trailers and, you know, kitchen equipment to house all those people and feed them. Like, go back to what he said. Just listen to how he said it.
You've got some leeway to do pretty much whatever you want, even though he could pretty much do whatever he wanted before. When you look at what went on behind the scenes to get the Odyssey made, you realize just how much of an ask this was, because this isn't just about adapting a really well-known text from a really well-known filmmaker filled with a gigantic cast of really well-known people. It's really not about that. That's what makes this look like an easy yes from a studio. It's really the fact that really well-known film. This isn't just about adapting a really well-known text from a really well-known filmmaker filled with a gigantic cast, even though
Let me put on the captions.
He could pretty much do whatever he wanted before. When you look at what went on behind the scenes to get the Odyssey made, you realize just how much of an ask this was, because this isn't just about adapting a really well-known text from a really well-known filmmaker filled with a gigantic cast of really well-known people. It's really not about that. That's what makes this look like an easy yes from a studio. It's really the fact that a large portion of the shoot involved a crew and all of their gear and the cast.
So it's not about the fact that it has a lot of actors that are, you know, transgender or black or, you know, woke, people with the woke community. That's where you get those woke vibes. It's not about that. It's about feeding them. Some people are going to think that he's a shield. I don't think Chris Sutton's a shield because he's made his own movie. He understands the, you know, what he's talking about, you know, when it comes to that, when it comes to getting the resources. One needs to have a film made.
Hiking up a mountain, helicopter rentals, somehow getting all of these massive A-list stars to these locations safely, as well as the crew safely, assembling an actual facility on the side of a mountain so that they could have lunch breaks. Like, this is a lot of money and a lot of time that's being asked to shoot a movie in a certain way. You got Hoyte van Hoytema shooting this movie entirely on IMAX cameras, the first film to ever be shot in that way, devising a system as well to use a mirror so that the actors could understand their eye line and see the person they were in a scene with, because the camera itself was blocking the other actor they're acting against. All of this stuff is to make the movie in a way that Nolan wanted it to be made, which is in a very handcrafted way. to see these things as much in camera as possible and as little CGI as possible. And you can tell when you're watching the movie because it feels like you're being denied some of those epic shots that you expect to see in a film that you might have seen in like a Troy in the past. Those wide CG shots of armies that are converging on each other that don't exist in this movie. There's quite a bit of ocean scenes in the movie, but there's one in particular at night during a fierce lightning storm where you're with the men on this ship and it's almost entirely lit by lanterns. And you're not really seeing shots of the ocean all that much. You're seeing the occasional lightning bolt that seems to be mostly on-set strobe lighting. It's lit as if it would be. I mean, if you're on a boat in the middle of the night, you're not seeing anything. Unless
Okay, let me... We open a new tab. Get rid of that.
Nolan has said in the past that he has interest in directing a horror movie one day and is very shit. I loved it. The casting of Matt Damon as Odysseus seems like it makes perfect sense on paper. The sequence with this gigantic creature looks... There is, of course, the Cyclops scene. I won't get into any spoilers. I do want to do a full spoiler video. Nolan has said in the past that he has on this scale. There are some admitting to what it is, just like Oppenheimer did. And it's such a joy for me to see. It's just so rare anymore that we see a Troy and The Perfect Storm, both really fun movies. But when you watch the Odyssey, it does feel like you're looking at reality, at least as much as you can when you're seeing giants and a Cyclops and sirens and the creatures of mythology that are in this movie. Everything about it feels as realistic as it possibly could. The techniques that are being used are so old school. And it's such a joy for me to see. It's just so rare anymore that we see a film of this scope with this cast that has an R rating that is aimed at adults. There's definitely some bloody moments and some very frightening imagery, but there's no reason that this couldn't have been a PG-13. And I love that it's R because it is committing to what it is, just like Oppenheimer did. And Nolan at this point has no reason to not trust the audience to show up for his films and make sure that they're supported so we can keep seeing giant movies like this told on this scale. There are some frightening sequences in this movie though, and it has really made me very excited about what Nolan has said in the past that he has interest in directing a horror movie one day and is very clear from two scenes in particular. There is, of course, the Cyclops scene. I won't get into any spoilers. I do want to do a full spoiler video, which I will hopefully have up for you this weekend. But this sequence with this gigantic creature looks so real. And the score from Ludwig Göransson, which is absolutely immaculate. The things that he did, like creating the sounds of instruments that aren't really in existence anymore and not utilizing like a full orchestra. It's a really amazing score. Once again, this guy is just pumping out great work. But that sequence was quite scary. But there's a later sequence. If you know anything about the story, you probably know what I'm getting at. I'll just say that it involves Samantha Morton's character. And that scene was amazing. Absolutely glorious. Like it's a full-on horror scene. I was mesmerized. It's really freaky shit. I loved it. The casting of Matt Damon as Odysseus seems like it makes perfect sense on paper. Like it feels like the type of thing where like, oh yeah, that's easy. He's Jason Bourne, of course. There's a lot more to glean from his performance in the film. He's really terrific. He's fantastic in the movie. And I'll talk more about this in the spoiler video, but it's really the approach to Odysseus as a legend and as a hero and the things that he chose to do that past films have explored in a very specific way. And this movie is taking an approach with it that I really admired. And it's one of the things about the movie that excites me the most. And we'll discuss that more in the spoiler video. At this point now, I'm pretty good at telling like what's in camera and what isn't. Oh, that's a set extension with CG, or that's a sky replacement or whatever. Obviously, there's lots of really great hidden CG in movies and things that we don't necessarily notice anymore. Usually like background elements that are blurry or out of focus. But with this film, so much of it really does look in camera. And I really could not believe what I was looking at for most of the runtime. It's just a beautiful looking film from start to finish. Narratively, it's pretty easy to follow, but the only times that I felt lost were really the first 10 to 15 minutes, and it's because you're kind of thrown into this world almost assuming that you have an obsession with the Odyssey that Nolan must have to want to make this story. Like, you know all the characters, you know all the story, and you're just like in it. You've done all the homework, and there's all these names being thrown around, and you kind of have to have this moment where you're like, oh my God, okay, focus. Because in typical Nolan fashion, even though his movies are long, they're edited very efficiently and very quickly. And so you're kind of digesting information at a super fast rate. And you're having to remember a lot of different characters and a lot of different motivations and things that are going on in their lives that are very important to them, but you don't necessarily know why they're important yet, but you will later. A lot of Nolan movies are like this. Dunkirk, Tenet, you know, like Oppenheimer, like where you have these different timelines that are all kind of folding in on each other. It's not like Memento or anything, but it does have an element of like, we're here now and now we're here and now you were there before, and you do have to remember all of that. And it can be rather overwhelming. It can feel a little educational, like you're being taught things, and that's great. Like, I love a good film education, but sometimes it feels like, oh my God, just entertain me for a second. I've got remember all of that, and it can be rather overwhelming. It can feel a little educational, like you're being taught things, and that's great. Like, I love a good film education, but sometimes it feels like, oh my God, just entertain me for a second.
The woke stuff, you mean? The agenda?
I've got enough info. I need some entertainment. And this movie does have that spliced throughout very, very well. But once I settled into the groove, I really, really started to appreciate the movie much more. And I would say the second half of the film in particular is just wonderful. That first half is good and you're on the ride. But once a certain thing happens, it feels like, oh, okay, this is the movie. This is like meaty shit. Like, I'm in it now. I really feel like I'm in the world and I'm just vibing with it 100%. The third act of the movie is one of my favorite Nolan third acts. It's just magnificent. I really, really dug the Odyssey. I think it's fantastic. I can't wait to see it again. I'm going to see it this weekend on 70 millimeter because the screening was in IMAX. And there's actually a few theaters near me that are going to do a 70 millimeter. So I'm going to go and do a spoiler video after that. And I think by then so I'm going to go because the screening was in IMAX. And it's just magnificent. I really, really dug the Odyssey. I think it's fantastic. I can't wait to see it again. I'm going to see it this weekend on 70 millimeter because the screening was in IMAX. And there's actually a few theaters near me that are going to do a 70 millimeter. So I'm going to go and do a spoiler video after that. And I think by then I'll have.
That's why all the seats in IMAX are filled, because it's in 70 millimeter. And there's not a whole lot of 70 millimeter theaters out there. Let me get my glasses on. I can barely see. There are about 30 true 70 millimeter IMAX theaters in the US. The standard is 35 millimeter, so it's physically wider. This captures 10 times more visual data, giving you a crystal clear image on a massive immersive screen. Locally in the Bay Area, you can experience 70 millimeter at the Metron 16 IMAX in San Francisco, at the Wiggle in Dublin, and at the Wiggle Senior Crossings and IMAX in Dublin, or the Esquire IMAX Theater in San Francisco.
have like a better understanding of like everything in this movie, because I'm very overwhelmed right now. The Odyssey is basically everything I wanted it to be, as well as things I didn't expect it to be. And that's typical Nolan, like where you go to see a movie expecting a certain kind of thing and you get this new thing that you kind of have to chew on a little bit. And I'm very excited to see audiences and how they react to this movie, because Oppenheimer was a test and people really dug that film. And I think that this movie is also going to be pretty appreciated. So I'm looking forward to seeing what people say about it. Thank you guys as always for watching. Look forward to more videos very soon, and look forward to a spoiler video for the Odyssey this weekend. As always, if you like this, you can click right here and get Stuckmanized.
Christopher Nolan's newest film hits theaters this weekend. Should you ought to see it or ought to skip it? I'll let you know right now. Hello everybody, I'm Dan Merle here with my review of The Odyssey. The review embargo just lifted. This is the latest film from director Christopher Nolan following his Best Picture winner Oppenheimer. And hey, the gang's all back behind the camera. We've got Hoyte van Hoytema as director of photography, Jennifer Lame editing the movie, Ruth de Jong doing production design, Nolan himself writing the screenplay, Emma Thomas producing, and Ludwig Göransson once again providing the music. Now, one quick note going into this review, I didn't find out until I arrived at my press screening, which was 3 hours away, that despite this being the first movie ever shot entirely on IMAX film, we would not be watching The Odyssey in IMAX. Nobody was really sure why, but as compensation, I guess, a projectionist was flown in to show the movie on 70mm film in a non-IMAX aspect ratio. Music. Now, one quick note going into this review, Göransson once again providing the music. Now, one quick note going into this review, I didn't find out until I arrived at my press screening, which was 3 hours away.
Yeah, he did Sinners, Oppenheimer, and Tenet. For that.
Way that despite this being the first movie ever shot entirely on IMAX film, we would not be watching The Odyssey in IMAX. Nobody was really sure why, but as compensation, I guess, a projectionist was flown in to show the movie on 70mm film in a non-IMAX aspect ratio. That's the format that you'll see, or at least the aspect ratio that you'll see on a standard screen. So when I talk about the look of this film, keep in mind it is based on a still, frankly, amazing looking film print, but not the IMAX version. I'm going to try to catch it in IMAX as soon as I can, maybe before my spoiler review, but it's tough to get tickets this weekend. But either way, I will report back, and I do plan to see the movie a second time in IMAX. The Odyssey is, of course, based on Homer's Odyssey, the ancient Greek epic poem featuring the war hero Odysseus on his years-long journey home from Troy to his wife Penelope, their son Telemachus, and his kingdom of Ithaca. As for who's in the movie, well, it might be easier to tell you who isn't in the movie. So I'll tell you who I thought the standout performances in the movie were. I really liked John Leguizamo as Eumaeus, Odysseus' most loyal friend, a blind man whose devotion and patience are matched only by Odysseus' wife Penelope. Anne Hathaway as Penelope spends years fending off suitors and refusing to let go of the belief that her husband's returning home, and I thought she was great in the movie. Tom Holland plays Telemachus, Odysseus' son, who finds his possession threatened by Penelope's many suitors, chiefly Robert Pattinson's Antinous. I don't mean this as an insult, but I felt like this was the most human and adult performance from Tom Holland to date, and I've liked him in a lot of other things. Himesh Patel also stands out as Eurylochus, Odysseus' second in command, and Samantha
Hold on, Suto. With the intention of getting you.
Samantha Morton and Charlize Theron also stand out in two crucial parts as key figures along Odysseus' journey. The movie is anchored, of course, by Matt Damon as Odysseus, and I think he's good in the movie, but this role is written as kind of the anti-Oppenheimer. Instead of everything in the movie circling around him, Odysseus circles around most of the events in the movie. I mean, it makes sense. This is an epic, not a psychological examination like Oppenheimer was, but it does tend to allow all of the other characters and the events to shine while Damon remains the stoic center. It's not really until Act 3 that he gets to stretch a little bit more, and I think that he's very good when he does get the chance. Now, there has already been an epic's worth of online discourse about this movie, and I'll say up front, if there are things you already don't like about the Odyssey, then I don't think there's anything actually in the movie that's going to change your mind. If you don't like the armor design or the ship design, there's no canon explanation in the script as to why they look the way they do. If you don't like the cast of the movie, there's no wink and a nod about none of them being Greek.
Yeah, why does it look the way they do? It's a movie. It's made to look awesome compared to reality. That's it. Let me center my camera more. Made to look awesome.
And if you especially don't like the casting of Lupita Nyong'o and Elliot Page, who's not playing Achilles, by the way, just know that all of this fuss has been over two characters with maybe 10 minutes of combined screen time in a 3-hour movie. These were the choices that Christopher Nolan made, and he's not trying to make an excuse for them or explain them. So who's not playing Achilles, by the way, just know that all of this fuss has been over two characters with maybe 10 minutes of combined screen time in a 3-hour movie. These were the choices that Christopher Nolan made, and he's not trying to make an excuse for them or explain them. So if you're angry already, you'll probably stay angry. But if you're basing your thoughts solely off of just a couple of trailers, then I do think that you should give the movie a chance.
And a lot of people have done that. They're basing their thoughts on trailers and other people's interpretation. Like, really. They're looking at people like The Critical Drinker and Neurotic, and, you know, that's how they're basing their movie on. They're basing their opinions all on them instead of, you know, actually seeing the film.
Personally, I don't share the outrage over historical accuracy as far as the designs and everything in a Hollywood movie based on a fictional ancient poem. I think that there's room for artistic license. I don't at all subscribe to the outrage regarding Nyong'o and Page's casting, and I disagree with most of the criticisms of the movie's look. I've seen a lot of people say based on the trailers that the film looks ugly and drab, but I think it looked incredible, with Hoyte van Hoytema showing once again why he's one of the best cinematographers working today. Yes, a lot of the scenes are dark because they're in dark rooms, or drab because they're on the stormy sea, but I think that there are some other scenes that are brilliant and beautiful. Now, let's talk about a classic Christopher Nolan technical issue that I did have some problems with, and that's the sound mix. As usual, dialogue is often just one element in Nolan's sound mix instead of the main element. And there were a few times where I found myself leaning forward in my seat, kind of straining to hear, like, what'd he say? This is most egregious in one of the first scenes of the film. It's the already infamous dad scene, which is held in a crowded banquet hall. I can only understand about every fourth word or so in this scene, and it was so early in the movie that I was worried that this was going to spell trouble for the rest of it. Luckily, this was the worst and most extended example of the tough-to-hear mix, but overall, at least in my theater, this movie was loud, like concert loud, sometimes plugging my ears, should have brought earplugs loud. Nolan has established that this is his style when it comes to sound. Critics be damned, but there is a point at which I think your stylistic preference is a distraction for the audience, and this is the one area where I do wish that Chris Nolan would compromise his artistic vision. The screenplay, I think, is where I'll probably find the most common ground with the film's harshest critics. I wasn't bothered by the use of dad and its variants in the movie, and the inclusion of Odysseus saying "let's go" in the trailer was actually a disservice to the movie, because in context, it's not meant as a rallying cry. It's a military commander telling his troops that it's literally time to depart and retreat from their position. But if there's one thing I've consistently the one area where I do wish that Chris Nolan would compromise his artistic vision. The screenplay, I think, is where I'll probably find the most common ground with the film's harshest critics. I wasn't bothered by the use of dad and its variants in the movie, and the inclusion of Odysseus saying "let's go" in the trailer was actually a disservice to the movie because in context, it's not meant as a rallying cry. It's a military commander telling his troops that it's literally time to depart and retreat from their position. But if there's one thing I've consistently found underwhelming in Nolan's films, it's his screenplays. And for me, The Odyssey was a regression from what we got with Oppenheimer. But it's not a consistent type of letdown. At times, I think the dialogue really crackles. It has a lot of humor. Sometimes it's pretty profound. At other times, the dialogue is just flat. Not bad necessarily, just flat, which isn't uncommon in Chris Nolan's screenplays. There are two attempts at wrapping up the story in a "what did this all mean" bow. One of them concerning Odysseus' personal motivations, which really worked for me, and another serving as a kind of warning for the future, I think, that really didn't. Now, I'll confess, I don't have an intimate knowledge
So I'm only halfway paying attention.
his personal motivations, which really worked for me, and another serving as a kind of warning for the future, I think, that really didn't. Now, I'll confess, I don't have screenplays. There are two attempts at wrapping up the story in a "what did this all mean" bow. One of them concerning Odysseus' personal motivations, which really worked for me, and another serving as a kind of warning for the future, I think, that really didn't. Now, I'll confess, I don't have an intimate knowledge of the original text. I read it in high school, so I remembered the main beats, but not much else. So Homer experts and Odyssey heads may be angered by some script changes that I wasn't aware of. I do know, even from what I can remember, that the gods themselves don't play as direct a role in the events of the film, at least not in the same way that they do in the Homer original, but they aren't discarded either. Despite Nolan's commitment to reality in filmmaking, he didn't turn the Odyssey into a story where everything has an earthbound reason to happen or the gods are vague beings who aren't really spoken of. They are crucial elements to the story, although almost never seen, and Nolan has constructed the entire story as kind of a dialogue between Odysseus and the gods, which doesn't really come into full focus until the end of the movie. It might not work for purists, but it did work for me. I mean, look, the script has issues, but it isn't horrible. I think the most frustrating thing is that I believe the script is the only thing holding this movie back from absolute greatness, because when the Odyssey is firing on all cylinders, it is one of the greatest cinematic spectacles to hit the screen in a very long time. The kind of epic filmmaking that I thought was almost as ancient as Homer's Odyssey. Nolan's commitment to shooting on location and practically whenever possible, but at a scale that would demand the use of digital effects in 99% of other movies, gives the Odyssey a sprawling, gargantuan feel that we may not see again for many, many years. Despite Odysseus and his crew facing giants, whirlpools, ocean storms, sea creatures, swarming armies, and more, I never once, even in the back of my mind, thought, well, that's computer generated, that's CG. And it's because most of it isn't. Not that there aren't digital effects, but so much of the movie is real and you're steeped in that reality that the effects just kind of blend in. It's the Jurassic Park mentality. Shoot everything you possibly can for real and use digital effects for the absolutely impossible. Between you and me, sometimes I thought that Nolan's commitment to reality was a little showy, kind of a self-imposed directorial purity test. But to stick to it with the story, this epic took both guts and talent. And this approach only makes the film more effective. I was in awe of so many things in this film because they were real. If they'd been digital effects, nothing would differentiate this movie from any number of other CGI spectacles. Nobody is making movies like Christopher Nolan right now. And if the script had been just a little better, like 20% better, I legitimately think this could have been one of the great movies, period. One thing that I think is great is how the movie is structured. Nearly all of the major segments, including historical background and pieces of Odysseus' journey, are framed as a character recounting what has happened. Sometimes it's Odysseus from memory, sometimes it's others based on legend. This version of the Odyssey is packaged as Homer's Odyssey originally was, orally, something to later be written down and shared with future generations. This is established early with a minor character who, yes, is played by Travis Scott. He plays a bard in the Greek tradition. No, he doesn't start rapping Homer's words over the beat to sicko mode, which I think is what some people were concerned about. The only downside to this oral tradition approach is that some characters, I think, do get short shrift since the stories begin either in media res or after their part in the story has started. I do think some massaging could have been done maybe to round them out a little bit more and to make the film feel just a little less episodic. But the episodes that Christopher Nolan makes in this movie, each individual segment of the Odyssey is fantastic. Even though many of these stories, such as the Cyclops and the Sirens, have been repeated so often that they've literally passed into our myth and legend, Nolan makes these stories feel fresh again through how he stages each one of these segments, sometimes adjusting the tone of the film, sometimes shifting perspective away from what you might expect. Two sequences of this movie are straight up horror, one traditional horror and one body horror, and another sequence I think brilliantly uses sound to show us a familiar beat in a new way. It's the business around these big chunks that I think could have used more work, the edges. But once we're immersed in something like the Battle of Troy, the Odyssey is filmmaking at its best. I may not have found the Odyssey to be overall a great film, but I do think it is a very good one. The first two acts, while at times uneven, rock pretty hard. It's the third act, I think, where most of the problems lie. It has some amazing parts, but others that drag and make the movie feel its length a bit toward the end. I think if some of the time from the third act had been devoted to stitching the first two acts of the movie together just a little bit better, giving us a little more context for a few key characters, and taking a little air out of the end of the movie, this would have been a stone cold classic from day one, and it may still be. I can also say, though, that this was my favorite movie-going experience of the year by far, and it's not even close. It is the embodiment of what Nicole Kidman has spent years trying to explain before every AMC movie. This is why movies exist and why we go to see them. The Odyssey is movie magic, plain and simple. So taking all elements into account, the Odyssey gets a very high-end It's Good rating, downgraded slightly only because of the script and a few technical issues I had, but it is an absolute see it now if you're going for pure cinematic spectacle. In my personal ranking of Christopher Nolan's filmography, I would put this a little below what I consider his S-tier films, Oppenheimer and The Dark Knight, but it would be leading the way in the next tier down. So those are my thoughts on the Odyssey. What do you think? Are you going to be heading out to see it this weekend? I really think you're going to be doing yourself a disservice if you don't see it on the biggest screen possible. Let me know down in the comments below, and be sure to stay tuned right here for the latest in movie news, reviews, box office, and more. Until next time, stay safe, and I'll see you then. Bye.
So
Sean,
in a recent
congrats to
interview
you on
with
this
the
film. You
Telegraph,
are
Christopher
brilliant
Nolan
in
addressed
it.
the backlash towards his movie, The Odyssey. He stated that the backlash he received during his tenure from DC fans taught him how to deal with fan backlash. It's kind of hard to imagine a situation now where people were bitching about his
Christopher
Batman
Nolan's
movies
newest film
as much as they're bitching about The Odyssey. But when you consider just not that long ago he was being criticized for having too many white people in Oppenheimer, I guess it's not that hard to believe.
My, how the tables have turned.
But it's what he said next in this interview that really sent the internet into a frenzy. Let's discuss.
I watch so you don't have to. All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
So as I stated in one of my previous videos on this subject, I do not think that Christopher Nolan really cares about this online backlash. And it turns out I was kind of right, and he pretty much says as much in this interview that we're about to cover. He talks about how he just makes projects he is passionate about, despite any negative discourse. And this is
Like James Cameron.
basically what I alluded to, and what some people don't seem to understand about directors who actually give a shit about the things that they work on. The direction that he took with this movie, or any movie that he makes, might not line up with your own personal values. But in reality, he is not making a movie that is intended to appeal to anyone's values. In reality, most talented directors won't. Now, you have some highly commercial directors who understand what they are and approach the projects that they are working on accordingly. But despite the fact that Nolan's movies do tend to make a lot of money, that's not really what he's about. It's never been what he's about. He does what feels right to him as a filmmaker, and then whether or not the audience accepts it determines said film's impact. Now, on the surface level, it would appear that a lot more people are against his vision of the Odyssey than are for it.
What is real? How do you define real?
And for the 100 would appear that a lot more people are against the film's impact. Now, on the surface level, it would appear that a lot more people are against his vision of the Odyssey than are for it.
What is real? How do you define real?
And for the 100th time, if you didn't hear it before, you are absolutely entitled to feel however you feel about this movie. But I do have to question the intent behind some people's criticisms. Now, I've seen people bring up valid things based on what's been presented so far, and I don't have an issue with any of that really. But I've also seen
all the people that are talking negatively about it to try to make it look woke, where it's not, try to make it look woker than it is. To grift, G-R-I-F-T, like shift, but take out the S-H and put a G-R, grift.
People very obviously expose their own insecurities over this situation, and basically just jumped on a hate train. Their own insecurities over this. Also seen people very obviously expose. I don't have an issue with any of that really. But I've also seen people very obviously expose their own insecurities over this situation, and basically just jumped on a hate train for the sake of it. I've seen many instances where people are claiming to criticize this movie, and yet their outrage doesn't seem to be about the movie at all. Some of the rage...
Anyway, Geeks and Gamers. Everybody's using AI for their thumbnails.
The Odyssey backlash. The Odyssey backlash has been like nothing I've ever seen for a film on this scale. It is absolutely insane and 100% deserved. But even as bad as it's been, Lupita Nyong'o and her moronic comments right here have taken it to a whole new level. There is zero defense of this woman, and there is zero defense of Christopher Nolan after hearing this. And let's be clear, this is 100% Christopher Nolan's fault. He actively has invited multiple cancers into his $250 million project. Lupita Nyong'o.
This guy probably doesn't watch movies. He just talks smack that surrounds movies. He he gives you more or less false information surrounding the movie without actually having watched the movie.
Ellen Page, John Leguizamo, Travis Scott, all of these people are not good for your movie. John Leguizamo was on record saying point blank that if you don't agree with his politics, don't go see his movie. He said that within the past year.
If you follow ICE, unfollow me, don't come to my shows, and don't watch my movies.
Nolan hired him for the Odyssey. We all know Ellen
I do follow ICE.
Page and this weirdo with a mental illness, and instead of Nolan going, hey, you should probably go get something done about this mental illness, Nolan decides to hire this person.
I wouldn't say she has a mental illness. Yeah, I still call her she.
And continue to help embrace the mental illness. Lupita Nyong'o, who's going to show you right here that she is absolutely positively the worst choice ever for Helen of Troy, the face that launched 500,000 dislikes. Let's listen to what she has to say right here. My goodness. So the question was, if you could ask Homer a question, what would it be? And this was her answer.
I'd be like, so Homer, how do you feel about the screen time given to these women, considering how little you spent with them? Oh, okay.
And then do you lean forward and look at him like that?
Yes, like, remember us? I'd be like, so Homer, how...
I am dumbfounded. I cannot believe that we are in this position, and we are in this position because Christopher Nolan decided to do this. And let me all remind you that Lupita Nyong'o didn't even have a clue what the Odyssey was. Lupita Nyong'o revealed in a cover story for Elle magazine that she had never heard of Homer's ancient Greek text before Christopher Nolan cast her in his upcoming film, The Odyssey. She referred to the casting as a crash course in Greek mythology. Yet she's going to sit here and arrogantly disrespect Homer in this interview. And I think someone responded to me, Jolly Roger, shout out to Jolly Roger. And, default position is not to blame the actors initially. And he and I agree. But when they start talking mad shit about, their fair game, that's why people love Cavill. He gets cast in shit movies and he never goes out and talks shit. 100% agreed. And I said, it's all on Nolan. He knowingly invited multiple cancers into his $250 million movie. And this is going to be the result of it right here. Now, if you go to the first trailer for The Odyssey, it has 600,000 upvotes to 134,000 downvotes. Now, at the time, this is the first trailer. It has 49 million views. And before the backlash started to pick up, I believe this trailer only had about 40 or 50,000 dislikes to 600,000 upvotes. Overwhelmingly positive. But it slowly started to fall apart. The second trailer, 345,000 upvotes, 316,000 downvotes. And the final trailer, a massive 500,000 downvotes to only 64,000 upvotes. And this is the face that launched 500,000 dislikes right there. There it is. Now, the reason that this movie is getting so much discussion is because it is Christopher Nolan. And this is one thing that I have tried to give some levity to the conversation, because on social media, whether it's on Twitter or YouTube, it is 100% negative for The Odyssey. The only people that are really positive about The Odyssey are people that are calling everyone that's criticizing it racist and sexist, and we all know how that always works out. But there is a world outside of the internet, and what I've tried to do is give people perspective on this, because I'm still not convinced that The Odyssey is going to fail. Not even close. And I want to give some understanding as to what my thought process is here. I was asking ChatGPT about the box office run of Christopher Nolan. And I said, how many Hollywood directors have 5 or more straight films that have hit $500 million at the box office? And it says Christopher Nolan is the only one. Then I said, what about adjusted for inflation, for our inflation, bro? about the box office run of Christopher Nolan. And I said, how many Hollywood directors have 5 or more straight films that have hit $500 million at the box office? And it says Christopher Nolan is the only one. Then I said, what about adjusted for inflation for our inflation bros out there? Because I knew they would ask that question. If you adjust for inflation, the picture changes quite a bit because many older films have made 200 to 400 million worldwide, easily would exceed 500 million in today's dollars. Instead of only Christopher Nolan, several directors would likely qualify with 5 or more consecutive films equivalent to 500 million plus today, including Spielberg, Cameron, George Lucas, Robert Zemeckis, blah, blah, blah. If you adjust for inflation, does any other director match Christopher Nolan's film run from Batman Begins to The Dark Knight? So Batman Begins in 2005 all the way through Oppenheimer. And it says that's a run of 9 consecutive films, all critical successes, all commercially successful, yada, yada, yada. So adjusting for inflation, Spielberg can't match Nolan's 9-film consecutive run. Correct. Even when adjusting for inflation, there isn't a broad consensus that Spielberg matches the specific 9-film run that Christopher Nolan has had from Batman Begins through Oppenheimer. I then say specifically with box office, because I don't really care about reception. I know all of Nolan's films have been positively received. Specifically with box office, I'm not including critic reception, audience reception for mainstream appeal, just in terms of box office with and without inflation. Is there any other director in history that can match the 9-film run of Nolan? And it says right here, adjust for inflation, Nolan's run becomes even stronger because Batman Begins goes from 373 to over $500 million. So no one matches it at all. It says no other director clearly has matched Christopher Nolan's 9-film run from Batman Begins through Oppenheimer. There are really only 2 ways to look at it. Without inflation, Nolan's run is essentially unmatched. And then it says Nolan's run becomes even stronger adjusted for inflation. And I keep asking all of these questions, yada, 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 just to kind of get some more clarity. And my point being is that he hasn't failed since 2005. And even then he didn't fail. That was a success. He's really never failed. He's never had a movie that has failed. So I'm supposed to believe that the Odyssey is going to be his first failure. And well, with a face like that, I guess it could be. But that's the perspective I'm trying to give everyone, is that don't just assume this movie is going to fail. Now, I say all of that to make a bigger point as well with all of this, that Nolan has not failed ever, really. And so if the Odyssey does fail at the box office, massive if, but if the Odyssey fails at the box office, it will be the single biggest failure for woke ever. And that's important. That's important on many, many levels. Now, again, I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying that that would be hugely important to destroying and defeating woke. Now, one interesting dynamic that has happened in the last day is that the Odyssey movie on Twitter has turned off replies. They've shut down replies. You can't even say anything anymore. So they obviously are feeling some of this backlash. And that has to be noted. And it's pretty funny. And it's not just the Odyssey movie. I believe Universal Pictures is doing the same thing. So maybe it was Universal UK that was doing it. Only some accounts can reply. So Universal UK not allowing it as well. So the backlash is big time right now, and they deserve it. They deserve it. Christopher Nolan deserves it because of this person right here, because of Ellen Page, and because of Travis Scott, and because of John Leguizamo. They have no business being anywhere near this movie at all. People are sick and tired of identity politics. People are sick and tired of being preached to. They're sick and tired of people disrespecting the source material. We saw this happen with Rachel Zegler and Snow White, where she disrespected the source material. And now here is Helen of Detroit, or Helen of Compton, or whatever you want to call her. She is disrespecting that same source material. What a complete and total disaster. Later today, we're going to get social media.
My goddamn thing has stopped. My TV. Keeps doing that.
Is Helen of Detroit or Helen of Compton or whatever you want to call her. She is disrespecting that same source material. What a complete and total disaster. Later today, we're going to get social media
My goddamn thing has stopped.
reactions dropping for the Odyssey. I expect it to be overwhelmingly positive because these are a bunch of
I
chills.
expect it to be overwhelming.
I still do believe that the movie, in all likelihood, is probably going to have a chance to be good. But will the backlash overtake any good word of mouth out there? Whatever happens, Christopher Nolan deserves all of the negativity he is getting, and he gets no sympathy from me. You guys have a great day. Thank you very much for checking out this video, and we will talk to you later.
Man. He sounds like a grifter, man.
Rage has extended beyond film discussion. Doesn't seem to be about the movie at all. Some of the rage has extended beyond film discussion into ugly places that have changed my whole perception of just how much the culture war has corrupted people's minds. Now, I would never tell anyone to not judge a movie based on a trailer. That's what a trailer is for. I do it all the time on this channel. But when it ventures into territories like this, those complaints absolutely start to fall on deaf ears. Because it comes off more like edgelord ignorance than it does valid criticism. Do you know how many times I've been called liberal, woke, and even racist based on my philosophy that I want to wait and see the film before I make any rash judgments on it? Who does that sound like exactly? It sounds exactly like the same people that the anti-woke crowd claim to hate so much.
You either
And it does valid criticism. Do you know how many times I've been called absolutely start to fall on deaf ears? Because it comes off more like Ventures. That's what a trailer is for. I do it all the time on this channel. But when it ventures into territories like this, those complaints absolutely start to fall on deaf ears. Because it comes off more like edgelord ignorance than it does valid criticism. Do you know how many times I've been called liberal, woke, and even racist based on my philosophy that I want to wait and see the film before I make any rash judgments on it? Who does that sound like exactly? It sounds exactly like the same people that the anti-woke crowd claim to hate so much.
you either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
I've now met
Yeah, I wanted to let that play. Yeah, because basically what you're doing is both sides do the same thing. The left and the right, the woke and the anti-woke. Just because you are going to wait to see a movie, you're seen as a racist. Because you won't join the discourse on hating the film without having seen it. Because you want to make a fair judgment, you know what I'm saying? Let me reverse that. I want to see what that really means.
And even racist, based on my philosophy that I want to wait and see the film before I make any rash judgments on it? Who does that sound like exactly? It sounds exactly like the same people that the anti-woke crowd claim to hate so much. Before I make any rash judgments on it? Who does that sound like exactly? It sounds exactly like the same people that the anti-woke crowd claim to hate so much.
You
The woke people, so.
either die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
I've now managed to attract hate from both sides of the aisle because I dared to think for myself in every situation. And that's the thing. A lot of people have their own personal agendas, clearly, when talking about this subject, even if they don't want to admit it. And
See, it started off with just. I see what is activated. And it started off with just the woke people having an agenda. And you had people like Matt Walsh, Ben Shapiro, Fred Cooper, and Candace Owens, to name a few. They would get on YouTube or the Daily Wire channel or whatever, and they would talk about these people just overall not. Let me shut my window. They would talk about how it's unfair for them to ask people to go ahead and say something without having seen it. You know, these leftists, these wokers, they would just say that you're a racist because you don't like the film because you haven't seen it yet. You know, because for whatever reason. But the anti-workers, that's what the anti-workers say, but now the anti-woke are doing the same thing. They have their own agenda. Because you choose not hate, because you might like a film. You're part of the woke crowd. You know, you can no longer just like a movie or dislike a movie and not be a part of some political bandwagon that is the left or the right. Anti-workers.
they are very clearly filtering this Odyssey situation through that agenda and making blanket statements for the sake of sticking it to the other side. My only agenda here is to get good movies, and I don't really give a shit how I get them. A perfect snapshot.
Both started with black community. Let me see African American. God damn it. 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 God damn.
snapshot of just how agenda-based a lot of this criticism towards this movie has been is the whole dislike controversy. You have many media outlets and YouTubers running with the narrative that the Odyssey is getting ratioed all over the place online, and that means that this movie is in fact going to flop. Yet they are basing their whole argument on these extensions that openly admit they have zero access to real YouTube data. They are coming up with dislike numbers based on their whole argument, and running with the narrative whole dislike controversy. Criticism towards this movie has shot of just how agenda-based a lot of give a shit how I get them. A perfect snapshot of just how agenda-based a lot of this criticism towards this movie has been is the whole dislike controversy. You have many media outlets and YouTubers running with the narrative that the Odyssey is getting ratioed all over the place online, and that means that this movie is in fact going to flop. Yet they are basing their whole argument on these extensions that openly admit they have zero access to real YouTube data. They are coming up with dislike numbers based on people using the extension and multiplying that number. Now, if this is correct and that's how they come up with these numbers, it's all the proof I need to understand that these numbers don't mean shit. Are we reporting on facts, or are we just running with whatever information supports our narrative? I would expect more from certain YouTubers who everyone claims are the only honest people on this platform. Yet I haven't seen any of said YouTubers report on how these numbers are created in the first place. Now, some may ask, if that's the case, then why won't YouTube or the...
Because they never include their evidence. They never show where they get those numbers from. They never do that. So, how can I trust it?
Studio release the real numbers. Report on how these numbers are created in the first place. Now, some may ask, if that's the case, then why won't YouTube or the studio release the real numbers? And my guess would be either they don't care, just like Nolan, or they feel like they are benefiting from this online rage in some way, and they're just kind of letting it play out. Whether
it's really because it's confidential information for them. Private. They're not going to give out the budget numbers, how much they spent, like the actual amount, and they're not going to give out the numbers of dislike. It's just like a private thing.
Whether they actually do benefit from it or not remains to be seen. But that's neither here nor there. But as a content creator who prides himself on being as honest as possible, there is one thing you will never see me report on again, and that's dislike ratios. I don't care if it's for a film that I support, or if it's for a film that's complete slop. Because just like everything else on the internet these days, this also feels very manufactured.
Not up in here! Not up in here!
Chris Nolan had one other major thing to say in this interview that got some people upset. In response to the backlash, Nolan said, quote, "The Odyssey backlash is irrelevant before people see the film." Basically saying that people need to see the final product in its entirety before they can fully judge it. And you know what? He's not entirely wrong about that. There has been instances where I've been spot on in my assessment of a movie based on its trailer. And most of the time this applies to the formulaic slop movies that look just as uninspired in the trailers as the final product ends up being. But there's also been instances where a movie ends up being better than I expected after I was convinced by the trailer that it... He's not entirely wrong about that. There has been instances where I've been spot on in my assessment of a movie based on its trailer. And most of the time this applies to the formulaic slop movies that look just as uninspired in the trailers as the final product ends up being. But there's also been instances where a movie ends up being better than I expected after I was convinced by the trailer that it would be garbage. It literally just happened a few days ago with Evil Dead Burn. Point being, you can absolutely make snap judgments about films based on what you see or hear prior to its release. Red flags are absolutely a thing, but you can never really know how truly good or bad something is unless you actually experience it for yourself. And that can only be the case if you are willing to go into everything with an open mind and judge a product on its own merits without bias. Or you can just choose to not watch it at all, and that's cool too. But at the same time, you should not be shaming other people who are willing to give it a chance and trying to make them not want to go watch it. Because again, that makes you no different than the side that you claim to hate. And this is judge a product on its own merits. And that can only be the case if you are willing to go into everything with an open mind and judge a product on its own merits without bias. Or you can just choose to not watch it at all, and that's cool too. But at the same time, you should not be shaming other people who are willing to give it a chance. At the same time, and that can only be unless you actually experience know how truly good or bad something is unless you actually experience it for yourself. And that can only be the case if you are willing to go into everything with an open mind and judge a product on its own merits without bias. Or you can just choose to not watch it at all, and that's cool too. But at the same time, you should not be shaming other
Bernard T. Joy. Who the fuck is this guy? You're a traitor to art and culture? The fuck?
People who are willing to give it a chance and trying to make them not want to go watch it. Because again, that makes you no different than the side that you claim to hate. And this is why I call them two sides of the same f***ed up coin. So in the end, bottom line, feel however you want to feel about the Odyssey. Let people like or dislike whatever they want to. But the minute you make it personal, the minute you make blanket statements about someone's character based on their interest in a movie or their opinion of said movie, that is when the rage and backlash no longer has any credibility.
Y'all be cool. Shut up.
Yes, sir. You ever seen him some ankles?
It's time to talk the Odyssey.
No, we're not gonna watch it yet. Oh no. Oh, we're not gonna do that. I think I rearranged it. I think we're gonna stop here so I can get some. But you can see where it's going. You can see that so many people are just trying to destroy it. They're trying to destroy it before they have a chance to shine. I don't understand, like, let's see what IGN thinks.
Crux of Christopher Nolan's much anticipated. Couldn't you have just shown some mercy? That line is the crux of Christopher Nolan's much anticipated adaptation of the Odyssey, a film that is truly huge in scope, while also at times emotionally acute. using Homer's foundational epic poem as a lens through which to offer a surprisingly modern lesson about war, PTSD, and the very question of why we still have to deal with those things almost 3,000 years since the Odyssey first came into existence. Nolan's opus is resonant and often bold. Unfortunately, it also occasionally misses a step in its storytelling and frequently feels rushed, despite its nearly 3-hour running time. The result is a must-see, if sometimes frustrating, film that is marked with moments of brilliance. I'm Scott Calora, and this is my review of The Odyssey.
No one could stand between me and home.
Anyone who bothered to read at least the first few chapters of The Odyssey back in 10th grade English class should know the story, but a quick refresher. Matt Damon stars as Odysseus, the king, warrior, husband, father who has been missing from his home island of Ithaca for some 20 years, flung across the realm of ancient mythological Greece after being summoned by the king of the Greek kings, Agamemnon. Told in non-chronological fashion, hey, flung across the realm of ancient mythological Greece after being summoned by the king of the Greek kings, Agamemnon. Told in non-chronological fashion, hey, this is Nolan after all, but also hey, Homer did it first. Odysseus' wife Penelope, played by Anne Hathaway, and their now on the verge of manhood son Telemachus, played by Tom Holland, suffer back at home, wondering if their king will ever return, even while the greedy and very uncool suitors, led by Robert Pattinson's Antinous, run roughshod over Odysseus' home, vying for his wealth. Manhood son Telemachus, played by Tom Holland, suffer back at home, wondering if their king will ever return, even while the greedy and very uncool suitors, led by Robert Pattinson's Antinous, run roughshod over Odysseus' home, vying for his wealth and his wife. It's a story that's been told on film before, if never very successfully. 2024's The Return, starring Ralph Fiennes, is great, but it only depicts the last act of Homer's work. And Nolan, perhaps inevitably, makes tweaks to the original poem that might bug Homer fans, changing bits here, compressing story threads there, adding in elements from other Greek mythology works, and even occasionally removing some of the most iconic moments from the original. Don't hold your breath if you're waiting for Odysseus to pull his I am nobody trick on the Cyclops here. That said, there's no way to translate all of the Odyssey into a feature film without nipping and tucking and, in the spirit of the work, dismembering some elements. And besides, the folks who never made it past Chapter 3 in high school are not going to know this anyway. Among the most thrilling aspects of Nolan's film are the horror elements that he brings to the highly episodic escapades of Odysseus and his men as they struggle to find their way back home after the Trojan War, only to fall on bad luck time and again. For example, the run-in with the Cyclops, achieved via visual effect but the performance of which was guided by the great Bill Irwin, removes much of the dialogue between the one-eyed monster and Odysseus from the book. But in its place, the director inserts a sort of existential dread as the thing goes about its day-to-day business of waking up, herding sheep, eating Odysseus' men, and going to sleep, before doing it all over again the next day. The grotesque design of the beast and the otherworldly sound design add to the next herding sheep, eating Odysseus' men, as the thing goes about its day-to-day business of waking up, herding sheep, eating Odysseus' men, and going to sleep, before doing it all over again the next day. The grotesque design of the beast and the otherworldly sound design add to the creep factor, but the Cyclops also seems to exist on a sort of higher level than mere man, barely aware of the crew's presence when not chomping on them. As Damon's Odysseus notes, we don't try to talk to ants, so why should this beast try to talk to us?
I think it's asleep.
A trip to the underworld is spectacularly realized as Odysseus encounters, among others, the men who have died under his command, and therein lies the rub for Odysseus, for how many have died because of his machinations over the past 20 years. Another memorable / horrific moment comes when Samantha Morton's witch Circe transforms Odysseus' men into pigs, morphing them and sculpting them with her bare hands, Rick Baker style. That Circe winds up coming across as sort of justified in her actions just serves to underline the film's thematic examination of what war does to man, or is it more a question of why man does war?
We won war.
But that's also one of the problems at the core of Nolan's The Odyssey. Despite its strokes of beauty, ugliness, and ingenuity in retelling Homer's story. Damon plays the hero as a warrior who, somewhere along the line, becomes stricken by the horrors he has wrought. His invention, the Trojan horse, won the war for Agamemnon, but to what end? After the war, the character is set adrift emotionally as much as he is literally lost at sea. The issue with this notion, however, is that Odysseus arrives at this state of mind early in his story chronologically, and yet we see him continue to make the same kind of mistakes time and again that landed him there in the first place, as if he hasn't learned his lesson despite his revelation. Additionally, while Damon is perfectly serviceable as Odysseus, he's also lacking the mischievous, trickster edge which is inherent in the classic take on the character. In Greek mythology, Odysseus basically pulled a clinger from MASH, trying to get out of having to go to war by acting like he was insane. But in the film, he dutifully and nobly heeds the call of Agamemnon. Interestingly, it's Pattinson's character who's the draft dodger here. Speaking of which, the Batman actor does what he can with what is basically the main villain role, but the suitors are essentially just depicted as bad guys doing bad things. The nuance that some interpretations of the Odyssey have brought to the suitors, the idea, for example, that Odysseus drafted their fathers, their grandfathers, and their older brothers to go off and all die in the war, only for the king to be the sole survivor to return home, is not really explored by Nolan, unfortunately.
They're pining.
The idea, for example, that Odysseus drafted their fathers, depicted as bad guys doing bad things. The nuance that some interpretations of the Odyssey have brought to the suitors, the idea, for example, that Odysseus drafted their fathers, their grandfathers, and their older brothers to go off and all die in the war, only for the king to be the sole survivor to return home, is not really explored by Nolan, unfortunately.
They're pining for a daddy. You didn't even know. Like some sniveling bastard.
As for Tom Holland's Telemachus, this is another character who can be frustrating to watch or to read, since he's frustrated as well by his inability to act against the villains who have overtaken his home.
What would he do if he came back here and find all these suitors in his house?
Holland doesn't quite find a way around this dilemma, and even when the cathartic final battle with the suitors arrives, those guys are so screwed. Telemachus doesn't get much to do. Hathaway, however, is perfect as the long-suffering Penelope, working her loom and waiting for a husband who may never return, and who she may not even recognize if and when he does. Her scenes with Damon shine, including pre-war flashbacks invented by Nolan.
Promise me you will come back.
What if I can't?
And when she confronts the interlopers in her home, she can be vicious. The cast is chock-a-block with stars and highly recognizable faces, even if most of them don't get a ton to do. John Bernthal does his John Bernthal thing as Menelaus, but Lupita Nyong'o, in her brief scenes as Helen of Troy, adds texture to the enigmatic character in a way that hasn't often been done. The actress also plays Helen's twin sister, wife to Agamemnon. The face of Benny Safdie's Agamemnon is never fully seen. Texture to the enigmatic character in a way that hasn't often been done. The actress also plays Helen's twin sister, wife to Agamemnon. The face of Benny Safdie's Agamemnon is never fully seen, but his looming presence is always feared, even by his own men. Himesh Patel gets a bit of depth as Odysseus' questioning lieutenant, while Mia Goth's handmaiden to Penelope is memorably Mia Gothian for what little time we see her. And oh my swineherd, John Leguizamo Gothian for what little time we see her. And oh my swineherd, his looming presence is always feared, even by his own men. Himesh Patel gets a bit of depth as Odysseus' questioning lieutenant, while Mia Goth's handmaiden to Penelope is memorably Mia Gothian for what little time we see her. And oh my swineherd, John Leguizamo is funny and touching as Eumaeus, Odysseus' loyal servant and caretaker of the best old dog in literature, Argos. There's also the matter of the gods, who are frequently invoked here, but not seen the way they are in Homer. Charlize Theron's Calypso is a nymph in the myth, but could just as easily be interpreted in the film as a less scary Annie Wilkes who just wants to keep Odysseus for herself. Zendaya's Athena pops up at key moments, typically when Odysseus is at his most introspective, but she doesn't pull any of the tricks that she does in the book, and how Nolan chooses to ultimately depict the character is one of the film's best conceits, as the question of what a god, or the god, actually is, and how such a concept would inform a character like Odysseus' journey is central to the film. What must also be acknowledged with the Odyssey is how skillfully Nolan has taken the many preposterous elements of the book, and please be aware that I say this as someone who absolutely loves Homer, but, you know, pigmen, giant cannibals, living whirlpools, more loves Homer, but, you know, pigmen, giant cannibals, living whirlpools, more giants. He makes them at best terrifying and at least interesting and believable. The much ballyhooed IMAX 70mm production was no small feat to pull off, and moments like Damon's hero helplessly watching his ship get torn apart around him during a vicious storm are as visceral as a film-going experience can get. But that doesn't mean that everything in the film works. One recurring idea about Zeus's law of hospitality receding while mysterious invaders from the sea are apparently slowly eroding civilization itself just doesn't ring true. It's a hook Nolan attempts to hang the Odyssey on, but like Odysseus' arc itself, it gets lost in the tide of the film's spectacle.
You're a man who needs to control his fate. But you cannot control this.
So I'm giving the Odyssey an 8. Christopher Nolan's film is a must-watch cinematic experience, an epic film version of an epic poem that adapts many of the out-there concepts of Homer through a new eye that frequently brings a sense of horror and existential angst to the story, and even a bit of humor too. Matt Damon is fine as the title character, if not revelatory, but the extensive supporting cast frequently prop up individual moments, as do some of Nolan's unique additions to the story. While Odysseus' emotional journey here can be as choppy as a rough day at sea, and the civilization is eroding theme is undercooked, the film's bigger observations on the effects of war on those who are forced to participate in it are well met. The Odyssey isn't perfect, but it's a pretty great movie-going experience all the same. For even more on the Odyssey, be sure to check out our interviews with the stars. And for all of your Odyssey needs, be sure to like and subscribe to IGN wherever you watch.
There's
continue.
There's already early reviews for the Odyssey movie out, and there's one that people are talking about, the review itself by Film Threat, so go check out their video.
Here we are, Alan, with our out of the theater review of the Odyssey, our social media reaction.
Aw, he looks so excited. I'm happy for him. If he genuinely liked the movie, then I'm happy for him.
Christopher Nolan. What do you think?
I was bored out of my mind.
Oh, damn. Okay. Wow. Then why'd you look so gleeful a second ago? Okay, now I understand. He was probably fitzing and eager and anxious and happy because he escaped the theater. I don't even blame you. Like, I haven't seen the movie yet, but I was curious, like, what people were saying about it. I don't want to see it. I'm not interested in seeing it because... sorry, the marketing didn't do it for me. But I know there's a lot of people who would like to see this movie regardless of the changes from the original source material. And I just thought, like, I really wanted something that was going to be as close to the book as possible. But as much as my husband loves Christopher Nolan, like, he loves his craft so much, I don't really... I mean, yeah, the effects are great and stuff, and I can see that Nolan puts pride in his work. I don't get it. Sorry. As much as I am also enamored with the concept and portrayal of time dilation or timey-wimey concepts, outside of The Dark Knight, there's really nothing else that Nolan produced where I'm like, oh my god, that was freaking amazing. Tenet was the last thing I saw, and you couldn't hear shit. It was like convoluted for the purpose of being convoluted so that pretentious people can say, if you don't get it, probably because you're stupid. Alright then, I guess I'm stupid. And the general audience that would spend their money on movies like this, the general average person, is stupid. And I'm not saying that Christopher Nolan's concepts are bad, but from my point of view, please don't take this personally, because I know some people get, like, crushed. I feel like he's the kind of person that has a brilliant mind, but does not have the creativity or the inherent ability to execute it in a way that it translates to everybody else. And I'm not saying let's use modern language for a story like this. There are other people that have made other movies in the past that were able to translate the language just fine. An example of this is a series I just watched recently called Spartacus. I loved this series. My husband made me sit down and watch it, and oh my god, I am so glad that I freaking did. And apparently it's based on a true story. And these guys speak in such a verbose manner, but the way that they were flowing the words together, I think even the person who's not a writer or an avid reader would understand perfectly what these people are saying. That's their way of showcasing their speaking in another language with how they form their phrases to sound a lot more esoteric. And I absolutely love it. And for me, someone who loves words and literature, I'm always writing down new words that I don't know. There were so many words in this show that I had to pause. And my husband was cracking up because he's like, you're gonna look up what that means, aren't you? Damn straight I am. And I learned a lot. Not just that, but they were able to take a story like this and make it entertaining. It doesn't matter how long. If they had put this whole thing in a freaking 9 to 15 hour movie or something, I would watch every freaking drop and want more. It's an old show, but I was just binging and wanting more and more and more and more. The same thing when my husband introduced me to Vikings. Absolutely love the show. Ragnar Lothbrok, he's my favorite. I love him so much. I actually know someone who's like in real life who looks just like him minus the hair, and I call him Ragnar. And I'm like, you don't know who that is? Like the guy who plays Ragnar? He's like, no idea. So when he came back and we were talking, I showed him the guy and I showed his friend. His friend started cracking the hell up because he really does look identical to him. Like, if I had known his name ahead of time, I would have thought that he was like a twin of this guy. It's crazy. Unfortunately, he's an offender. I found that out later. So if Hollywood's looking for him, you're gonna have to look in jail. But anyway, the Viking series was never boring. Game of Thrones was never boring. Shows like House of the Dragon are able to keep you on your feet with all the moving pieces, with it having that historical skin, with elements of fantasy. All these other shows are able to do this. I personally think, judging off the movies that I've seen from Christopher Nolan, that he struggles with this. And I'm not trying to be mean. Inception, I know everyone's like, it was a fantastic movie. Sure, but I'll never forget it. Like, by that time, everyone and their grandmother had seen Inception. It's been many, many, many years. And my teacher happens to mention it, and I'm like, oh, I didn't see it. Well, technically I did, but I fell asleep. And oh my holy crap. Holy pigeon fuck. All the guys, specifically, in my class, turned around on me, almost broke their...
Technically you didn't, since you fell asleep.
Freaking necks off their hinges, and turned around on me and was like...
What?
Then there was a cacophony of people screaming at me and wondering how could I do something so awful as to fall asleep during the masterpiece that is Inception. How could you? Bet that just drenches your socks, doesn't it? Oh well, my bad, it was boring. And my husband was so offended, he made me sit down and watch it twice. And guess what? Maybe I didn't fall asleep that time, but my brain shut off because I was so fucking bored. But I get it, some movies are just not for everyone, and some people like to sit down and watch things that just drag.
I was checked out on this movie pretty much from the beginning. The sound was awful.
Oh! So like Tenet, where you couldn't understand the shit what they were saying? A movie that has so many intricate moving parts to it that requires exposition for you to even remotely understand what the hell is happening, and you couldn't understand anything? It wasn't mixed well? Tickle me freshly silver. Why was I ever surprised? After I wasted my time with Tenet, I was like, never again. Never again. And that just confirms it.
I couldn't understand dialogue. And then I started to understand dialogue and realized how bad the dialogue is. This is the most pretentious movie I've seen all year.
Well, thank you for being honest and giving it to us straight, because ouch. Damn. If I was a writer, someone said that to me. I'm like, all right, back to the drawing board, I guess. Or let's see what the general consensus says, because these are only, a few people that have reviewed it so far. Haven't heard these guys' reviews, but maybe the other guy that was in the start will like it.
Can't wait to not see this movie again.
Oh my god. I guess that's another thing, right? Like, does the movie have rewatchability? Like, there's some movies you watch them and then you go back and you say, wow, I didn't catch that the first time. Makes me want to go back and watch it. I can watch Deadpool over and over again, right? I can even watch The Dark Knight over and over again. Tenet, I actually wish I could go back in time, like rewind time like I do in the movie, and not see that movie. I can't say I wish I could unhear it too, because I didn't hear anything. And I thought I was the only one. And then my husband was trying to cope so hard, being like, no, it's because it was mixed for like certain theaters. And I'm like, dude, does it not make sense that if the general audience doesn't have access to that, and you want them to love your movie, that you would make it available to be seen in the setup of the theaters that do have it mostly? Like, that, don't give me that, because I don't remember, well, then I didn't see The Dark Knight in theaters, but I've watched other movies, the Godzilla movie from Japan, and so many other movies. And yeah, they do have money mixing now, but at least I could still hear what they were saying. Tenet was just, you couldn't hear shit. The music was way too loud. It was terribly done. And I think Christopher Nolan, yeah, he has talent for cinematography, but maybe something has gone to his head or something with how valuable he is. So he thinks that everything he does is perfect. And that's what happens when you say yes all the time to someone, instead of, hey, I know you're a legendary person who's done all these other works that worked out for you, but these were not it. This is ass. And someone needed to have said that to him.
The thing that didn't work for me mostly was the accents. The way they spoke, I felt diminished the film.
I can completely see where people are coming from with that, because if something is set in a fantastical, historical, mythological, what have you, environment, you want to have accents. If you cannot get people to do Greek accents, the common one that people usually use are British accents, because there's a lot of British actors, but also it's a way of Hollywood's way of basically saying they're not really speaking English. And if the majority of people in the West do not have English accents, they have more accents like mine, or American accents, or Western accents, and that's the broader appeal, then it makes sense in the English dub you would have something that sounds otherworldly or foreign. So if someone from California is watching it and they're all speaking like debutantes, this way they can become immersed in the fantasy and believe that they're somewhere that they're not. It makes people feel, it tricks psychologically people, it tricks them into feeling as though, oh, this is in another world. Fantasy, British accents, it's just a thing. Pretty sure in some British places they would have the same thing for someone else with another accent. Or if you're shooting a movie that's in an African continent, they speak with that accent of that country from Africa. Or Native American movies, they don't necessarily speak in the whatever language that they choose based on the tribe, but they also don their accents. So you look at them and you're like, oh, they're not from here. Oh, it's not. Because if I see a historical Native American movie and they're speaking like, oh my God, guys, like really? Like it's gonna take me out of it. I'm sorry. I cannot take that seriously. Unless it's meant to be comedy, then that'd be interesting.
It felt too modern. And in a way, it kind of felt like El Topo. Alejandro Jodorowsky's El Topo was like...
No idea what that is.
Western. And this felt like a modern epic.
And yeah, so I understand why there will be like a cognitive dissonance when people hear people speaking casual, everyday modern English. And it's this weird mental discomfort that happens when like your eyes are seeing a war-torn king from thousands of years BCE, but your ears are hearing like modern American movie stars speaking in their own way of naturally speaking in our current world. And if the linguistic scheme doesn't match the visual, the brain kind of struggles to maintain the illusion. And it's no different than when you see anime sometimes and you hear the English dubs and they sound so freaking stupid. You know that's not how it's supposed to sound. It's like you're hearing badly voiced characters versus this awesome thing that you're seeing in front of you, and it's just taking you out and ruining your concentration. Now I understand why Nolan
του Easy Greek. Σε αυτό το επεισόδιό μας θα μιλήσουμε για την ελληνική προφορά στα αγγλικά και τι μπορούμε να μάθουμε για τα ελληνικά από το πώς εμείς οι Έλληνες μιλάμε αγγλικά και συγκεκριμένα και τη βοήθεια του Easy Spanish και συγκεκριμένα τη βοήθεια του I feel at peace.
When I'm at the beach, I feel at peace.
When I'm at the beach, I feel at peace.
When I'm at the beach, I feel at peace. Στα ελληνικά δυσκολευόμαστε με το ch, το και το sheep θα γίνει
Camouflage in the rush.
My chameleon does. Θα το προφέρουμε dz. Συχνά θα γίνει purple.
The weirdest in the world.
The color of this bird's beak is the weirdest in the world.
Well, this is a tribute to our amazing Greek accent. This is the bread. This is the biscotti. And this is the cookies. Very nice, beautiful Greek cookies.
What are they called?
Cookie, mommy, cookie. Well, this is a tribute.
So we actually use pitch a lot in English as well. So if you're a native speaker of English or you're a native speaker of English, pitch effects in English, however, are not tend not to be most prominently associated with the pronunciation of individual parts of a word. It's a part of our stress accent, but it's a relatively minor. We change pitch a little bit during when we stress a syllable. But we do this at different levels of
You've been learning Greek for a while, but you feel like your accent could use a little boost. You are in the right place. Today I'm sharing 10 tips for improving your Greek accent so you can sound more like...
Tip number 1. Focus on mastering the Greek vowel sounds. Greek has 5 basic vowel sounds. The name of the letters are alpha, epsilon, eta, iota, omicron, epsilon, and omega, and the sounds are a, e, I, o. In English, vowels can sometimes stress or change, but in Greek, they stay the same. For example, the sound of alpha in Greek is always like a in father. Practice these vowel sounds and make sure they are clear and concise in your speech. Tip number 2. Master the tricky Greek consonants. Some Greek consonants can be tricky for beginners, especially the letters gamma and delta. For gamma, think of a soft sound, almost like the whine yes when it's in front of e or I. For delta, it's like a soft th sound as
Hey there, Jim Johnson for Accent Help here, and I recently talked to you about the Italian intonation. So that Italian intonation, it has this cycling effect that I think of as the way that many Americans actually speak, and it's present in a lot of different accents. That Italian one is one of the strongest ones that I think is a really great example of this cycling intonation. And if you've watched many of my videos at all, you know that I'm really into physicalizing whatever the intonation is, the musicality. And so right now I'm in Greece. This is the Parthenon, the Acropolis, and the Parthenon right behind me. So yeah, that's kind of chill. So With a Greek accent, it's actually kind of a similar intonation. It's got this cycling kind of intonation as well. So the Italian has a lot more lightness, right? There's this Italian lightness in the accent, in the intonation. For an Italian speaker, there's more like, there's a little bit more height or lightness or levity or helium almost in it. Whereas for a Greek accent, it's a little bit stronger. And I almost think of it as not this Italian sort of floating kind of thing. Instead, with a Greek accent, Greek, there's a little bit of, and it varies, of course, from person to person, but just thinking about a couple of people that I spoke with today, this Greek accent, for someone, it was more like this. This was along the line of that, so it's a little bit of this cycling effect as well. Someone that's more of a heavy kind of sound to it, but still, it's a little bit of this cycling effect, but then a little bit of almost a flick, a little bit of almost a dab along that line, just a sort of a very gentle cycling kind of dab. And if I also think about a recording that I got of someone once on Santorini. So that.
There's already early reviews.
Agamemnon. Agamemnon.
Two years of war. No one could stand between my men. And home. Not even me. The sun. I want you to choose me. I need everyone at this party dead. I can still save them.
You're a man who needs to control his fate. But you can
Don't you remember?
thunder. Fire.
Remember? A wife? A son? Home. Ithaca's a kingdom waiting for a king.
My dad is coming home.
You're pining for a daddy you didn't even know. Like some sniveling bastard.
Ithaca's king is coming back.
Remember?
Thunder. Fire.
Death.
Is being played by Juno. That is Ellen Page, who now goes by Elliot Page, who is being played by Juno. That is Ellen Page, who now goes by Elliot Page, who is a very sad, describes Achilles as the ideal heroic warrior.
Even though he was very expressive and moving around, he still had, even in the pitch range that he would operate in, he had this going on as well. This very same kind of flick, this kind of light flicking quality. So again, I think whenever, as an actor, you're working on an accent, one of the important things that you can do is physicalize the intonation. It's probably also really, really important for you to do things like go to things like go to the Acropolis and drink some Retsina a lot of people think is a crap wine. In general, I don't like wine, but I like Retsina. And it's like the one wine that I genuinely enjoy drinking, and it's considered a crap wine. So here I am on a rooftop, looking out at the Acropolis, where hopefully the lights are going to come on here in just a few minutes as the sun is going down. And I'm enjoying a little Retsina, only for you, though. I'm doing this purely for my work. Evaristo. Paracalo. Hey there.
Wanted to do this. He wanted people to focus on the story so people can easily relate to Odysseus, probably figuring that if it's easy for them to just understand that Odysseus and the other characters wouldn't come across as these very distant mythological people, but recognizable, relatable, and broken people. Specifically Odysseus, he's a broken soldier, right? But the uncanny valley is still there, just like seeing something like this and hearing rap music behind it or something, or having a poet or a modern day mumble rapper playing a poet or a bard in this and rapping exactly as rappers do in our current day. You can't take it seriously. Not to mention that apparently, I don't know, I'd have to see the movie for myself.
My mic in front of my fan. Damn, I'm sorry, it's gonna pick up on that. My bad. Let me move my mic over here. There we go. Because I got my mouse in my right hand, and anyway, you don't need to be that detailed. Some things can be changed. A director will change things for his vision to be seen and fulfilled. And sometimes it has, you, how do you say, you improvise. You go with, who's going to be my audience? Or Greek people going to see this compared to the modern day people? When am I releasing my film? The United States. Therefore, it's got to have a familiar accent that is the U.S. that the people in the U.S. and the U.K. respectively know, and that's people like Tom Holland, and Robert Pattinson, Spider-Man and Batman, in one scene. So yeah.
But from what other audience members are saying, the ensemble cast have different regional accents. So you have British and then you have American. So some people are like, they should be allowed to speak in their natural accents, and there's no right accent here, because if they do speak British or in British accents, they're still going to be speaking English. Someone replied in one of the comments saying, I mean, there should be consistency within a family, why would Penelope and Odysseus speak with an American accent and Telemachus speak with a British accent?
It's not really an American or British accent because those nations didn't begin at that time period.
Someone said he was going through a phase. He was listening to a lot of The Cure. I'm guessing that's a band. Telemachus could pick up the British accent from hanging around the suitors more than his mom. No, let's just call it what it is. As funny as this is, it's laziness. Let's be honest. People are trying to cope saying, well, my parents use Corinthian dialect sometimes. I speak Austrian Standard German. It's not impossible for family members to speak differently. And yes, I'm a walking...
1250. How do you spell nitpick? I'm being just as mean because she's making a 1639. I'm gonna say 17-minute video.
Example of that, if my parents speak the accent of our country or our language, and when I'm around them, it comes out more, but this is my natural way of speaking, even though, like, I wasn't born in the States. So, it's possible, but as this person answers and says, sure, but that's an artistic decision that probably would confuse a moviegoer without proper context and explanation, which wouldn't make sense for the story. Exactly. People like me and the other person are not the norm. Usually when you grow up around certain people, unless or whatever, you're gonna pick up the culture of like how they speak. And it makes sense that for the moviegoer, you make it as easy to understand or track lineages or relations between people based on the way they sound. For example, the way that the Dothraki sounded in Game of Thrones was completely different than the way that other people sounded from other places. And same thing for the people of Dorne.
But here's the thing. That's a long-ass show that had 8 seasons. And then you had a spin-off series called The House of the Dragon. That's a really long television series that I pretty much, like everybody else, binge watched. You can do that. You should do that with a binge watching movie, a long ass series that's a television series, not necessarily an epic film like the Odyssey.
Writing letters?
A poem, actually.
May I show you the gardens?
I couldn't very well refuse a royal escort.
Notice how Oberyn Martell from Dorne sounds different than Cersei, who sounds different from the Dothraki, and who sounds different than the people of Winter.
2015.
Winterfell. Even if they have like different UK dialects or whatever, or accents, as you will, you're gonna have people that come from different regions of those same areas that sound slightly different. For example, in my country, people in the mountains sound completely different, and their dialect for the language is completely different. Like, we can understand a lot of their words, but not all of them. And they can't understand us. And where in my country we have to also learn English, they don't know English whatsoever. So, and then if you put us both together, you're like, oh, you're both from the same country, but you hear how the mountain people talk, you hear how the valley people talk, completely different thing. Completely different. You're like, wait, they're both from the same country? Like, yes, regions matter, dialect matters. Even with killer whales, different pods have different dialects. Is this going to affect the normal moviegoer? Probably not. For me personally, it's like, I don't think I'd pay to see that. Because first of all, it's not based on the original source material. I don't even have a problem with them speaking English, obviously. If we wanted to really have it as close to the source material as possible, then, I mean, ancient Greek, they're supposed to be speaking the language of that country. But in translation, artistically, it still has to feel foreign to the people or general audience who's watching. There's like over 600 million people in North America. The original source material, I don't even have a problem with affect the normal in the same country. Like, yes, regions matter, dialect matters. Even with killer whales, different pods have different dialects. Is this going to affect the normal moviegoer? Probably not. For me personally, it's like, I don't think I'd pay to see that. Because first of all, it's not based on the original source material. I don't even have a problem with them speaking English, obviously. If we wanted to really have it as close to the source material as possible, then, I mean, ancient Greek, they're supposed to be speaking the language of that country. But in translation,
the actual Greek language, not English.
Artistically, it still has to feel foreign to the people or general audience who's watching. There's like over 600 million people in North America, and the film, from what I know, is being made from North America. And there's
it is already foreign based on the what you see in the mise en scène. We know that it's in Greece. Give me a second. Look up what Wikipedia has to say about production. Filming took place from February to August 2025 in Morocco, Greece, Italy, Scotland, Iceland, Western Sahara, and Malta, as well as the US studios in Los Angeles. So you don't have to necessarily be in all of Greece. You just got to be in enough foreign locations for it to look like Greece. Because it says Morocco, Greece, Italy, Scotland, Iceland. You know, Morocco's in Northern Africa. You already have enough foreign lands as it is. Greece being one of them.
There's 60 million people in Europe or in the UK. And the Odyssey, or Nolan's version of it, is an American film, or an American-British film, but it's coming out of Hollywood. So what do you guys think? Is it really a big deal?
So, what I think is, you're saying that it doesn't affect you as a moviegoer, but you just spent the prior 7 minutes talking about the accent that is lacking in this movie. That you would like to be able to get emotion in it via a Greek accent and Greek dialogue, like with Greek actors, basically, not so much as American actors like Robert Pattinson and Tom Holland and Matt Damon. But you're also saying that you don't really need that to see a film, to see the movie. So you're saying that you do need it to see the movie, but you don't need it to see the movie. You're saying that you need it, you need that Grease authenticity to watch the Odyssey, but at the same time you also don't need it. I don't you're saying that the fans need it, that people need it, but you don't need it. But you just said that the general audience doesn't need it. Because in the beginning of it, you said that they do need it, and then you say they don't need it. I'm a little confused as to.
If we wanted to really have it as close to the source material as possible, then affect the normal moviegoer, probably regions matter, dialect matters. Even with killer whales, different pods have different dialects. Is this going to affect the normal moviegoer? Probably not. For me personally, it's like, I don't think I'd pay to see that. Because first of all, it's not based on the original source material. I don't even have a problem with them speaking English, obviously. If we wanted to really have it as close to the source material as possible, then, I mean, ancient Greek, they're supposed to be speaking the language of that country. But in translation, artistically, it still has to feel foreign to the people or general audience who's watching. There's like over 600 million people in North America, and the film, from what I know, is being made from North America. And there's 60 million people in Europe or in the UK. And the Odyssey, or Nolan's version of it, is an American film, or an American-British film, but it's coming out of Hollywood. So what do you guys think? Is it really a big deal with the accents?
I don't know how to say. Give me 1 second. Why is it taking so long? I have a typing issue. And what? She says it in the beginning of.
Standard German, it's not impossible for family members to speak differently. And yes, a family, why would Penelope and a poet or a modern day mum?
I felt like El Topo.
I understand why there will be like a cognitive dissonance when people hear people speaking casual, everyday modern English. And it's this weird mental discomfort that happens when like your eyes are seeing a war-torn king from kind of struggles to maintain the illusion. And it's no different than when you see anime sometimes and you hear the English dubs and they sound so freaking stupid, or mythological, what have you. And Hollywood's way of basically saying they're not really speaking English. And if the majority of people mythological back to him.
The thing that didn't work for me mostly was the accents. The way they spoke, I felt diminished the film.
I can completely see where people are coming from with that, because if something is set in a fantastical, historical, mythological, what have you, environment, you want to have accents. If you cannot get people to do Greek accents, the common one that people usually use are British accents, because there's a
Put 822.
British film, but it's coming out of Hollywood. So what do you guys think? Is it really a big deal with the accents? Do you think that this movie is going to do really well? Are you excited to see it? Me personally, nah. And I hate to say this, but maybe if someone else was doing it, I'd be interested. But Nolan's just not it for me. I appreciate his craft, the pride he takes in his work, the cinematography, and I'm sure he can make a good film. He has made great films. This one just isn't tickling my fancy.
She's just basically coming up with excuses to not go see it. You know, if you don't want to go see it, just don't watch it. Just, you know, don't go see it. If you don't want to watch it, no one should shame you for choosing not to see it. You know? No one should shame you for not liking it, but you haven't seen it, so you can't dislike it or like it. But you're already talking shit about it when you haven't seen it, and just because, well, the accents are a big deal. I'm pretty sure Chris Gore and Alan Ing have both said in their reviews that while this isn't in the accent, and this not the review for this film, but the review for other films that had the same thing with, you know, English speaking actors or people from, you know, British people speaking, playing a role that is like another Greek role or another role that's entirely different, like an Australian role or whatever. They said, like, while they don't fit the accent, you don't necessarily need that emotion to get the believability. You don't need that for the believability of this film. Like, basically, you don't need this to be immersed in the movie to believe it. People, like, if you're gonna nitpick like that, you don't even need to watch movies, man. Like, you just don't go watch it. I'm trying to fix my screen here. It's like very wobbly, and trying to center myself. Yeah, there's a lot of people that want to nitpick every little thing, man, and just. That's why I don't like to get in arguments with people, because they have a stupid reason for not liking something. You know? To me, that's just petty, dude. That's just so petty nowadays. They're joining this hate bandwagon that we have of people who just feel like they just have a dire need to hate something and want to talk all about why. Yeah. Anyway, that's all I got to say. That's all I got to say right now. I'm gonna go see the movie. I think I've got it for. See, when do I have it? I got a ticket to see it. Yeah, later on today at 7. And then again Friday night. I better put that into my schedule. Where's my calendar? Set an alarm. So I need to leave exactly 5. Sacramento and Conan. Look at that. Yep. Anyway, yeah, scheduled to see it at 7 o'clock. Dolby Cinema. Yeah, she's just nitpicking, man. Just a nitpicker. I'm interested in what the bald man will have to say about the naysayers for this movie. Anyway, thank you for joining. I look forward to covering this more, watching to see what people think and how people respond, and then, ultimately, we'll see what the score is. I mean, the score for the most part, and I'm sorry I'm moving around a lot. I can't really say goodbye. Probably out to blow my nose. I need to start being more decent while being on camera. 96% right now. Hopefully for my Kalshi it'll be above 97. Because I'm really depending on this trade, this prediction. Man, I hope I'm not. Looks like I'm losing. I've already lost 95 cents. It's at 96% right now. I don't want to put any more money in this. but I wanna put in enough money for a winning score that's above 395 right now. So that's more likely to win. I want to keep it. I don't want to go below 95. The vote I made was above 96 and above 97. And they're both losing for right now. Anyway, we'll see. So, I'll be covering this over this weekend. So, stay tuned.